You actually have to get that into your okay, so email me. I'll get you. What was your name? If you'll
Going to bring this meeting to order. I want to ask Commissioner Williams for the invocation and the pledge.
Let us pray. Once again, dear Father, we come to you. We thank you for what you have done for us today, yesterday, and the things you will do for us tomorrow. Now, Father, be with this Board of County Commissioners as we look at this agenda and carry out this agenda tonight, and let what we do be for the best interests of Columbia County and not just a chosen few. Father, once again, our hearts was aching when we look at your world, the one that you created, and we see the turmoil that's going on. And we know within the book it says there'll be wars and rumors of wars. But this afternoon, we ask you just to look after Ukraine and her people. As I said the last time when I led prayer for this commission, I still believe in miracles. I still believe that there's another Goliath to be slain. So, Father, look after the Ukrainians and look after the rest of your world. Father, we thank you for what you do. But most of all, Father, we thank you for our son, Jesus Christ, that went to Calvary, shed his blood. He was dead and buried. But by his blood, we all can be forgiven of our sins. So we say thank you, Father. These and all other blessings we ask in thy son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen, amen, and amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to ask if there's any additions or deletions.
Yes, sir. There's a couple. There is a resolution that goes with the Supervisor of Elections presentation. There is a resolution amending a resolution that you had last week on the boat ramp contract so that it adds another signature line, which is Fish and Wildlife told us this week needed to be done. There's a resolution from the town of Fort White, which they gave us Tuesday and asked us to put on our agenda. And a resolution, was there another resolution or was that it? Oh, and mowing. We wanted to add something on mowing contract.
Okay, I've got the mowing at your first, Kirby, Mr. Kirby, and the boat ramp at the end of Mr. Kirby's presentation, and the town of Fort White edition in the first of yours, David. That's okay. Do I have a motion for approval agenda?
So moved.
second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, first off, this is another addition. The speaker from 4-H, Kaylee Hutchinson, Miss Janney's got her here, and she'll always start the meeting out on a positive note.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman, for having us tonight. So we have Miss Kaylee Hutchinson, who is from Belmont Academy, and she is in 6th grade. Kaylee went to our 4-H district events, and she was the grand champion. She was a blue ribbon winner and the public speaking category. But Kaylee also placed first in the Florida 4-H public speaking contest here in Columbia County. So she beat all of the other schools here or other 6th graders here in the county. And her speech today is, y'all get ready for it. Be prepared. How women are much stronger than men. So y'all give her a round of applause. Cheer her up.
Let me paint a picture for you. Your mom is sick. What do you see? She's still cooking, cleaning, working, and doing the laundry. Now, if your dad is sick, that's a whole different story. The man cold is in action. Your dad won't move from the bed. He acts like this little cold will end him. If men can't handle a simple cold, how can they handle a woman's job? A woman can wake up, get the kids ready for school or daycare, head into work, walk in with the biggest smile on their face, even if they don't like the job, get the day's work completed, get off work, pick the kids up, cook dinner, and get the kids ready for bed, all while going through the worst times in their lives. If this isn't strength, I don't know what else it could be. The point is, women can handle so much more, such as on the physical, educational, and emotional side. So why do we get this image that men can hold up the world? To start out with, women handle so much more physically. According to Alexis Stevenson, a woman in labor shows Herculean strength while her birth coach husband faints dead away. Shows how women can control pain and their fears better than men, because labor is not an easy experience. The Women's Center states, it's not because women are stronger. Men are actually more powerful than most fit females. But here's the point. Women's muscles tend to be more resistant to fatigue than men's, proving that women can work out the gym painlessly much longer than men can. Julia explains, as seen in cases of athletes like Olympic weightlifter Sarah Robles, British hep athlete Jessica Hill, and tennis star Serena Williams, when a woman performs at the top of her game, her femininity is often questioned. As a female athlete, people want to draw out your masculine traits that make you successful, as opposed to your female traits that have made you successful. So if you join the Olympics, being a woman and strong, people possibly could question your strength. To add on, people may only popularize your masculine strengths, which is pretty messed up. Men, you're probably wondering, if women can handle more physically, why do they complain over their menstrual pain so often? Can't be that bad, right? Well, myself and many other women can say otherwise. Riverside Pain Psychiatrians explain, studies have found that the female body has a more intense natural response to painful stimuli, indicating a difference between genders in the way pain systems function. A greater nerve density present in women may cause them to feel pain more intensely than men. Women, even though their pain is more intense, they can handle this great burden better than men possibly could. Arguably, do men have some advances physically? Yes, no doubt. But then again, women are very much underrated for their physical ability. To continue, women handle more educationally. Lisa states, from elementary school through college, girls are more disciplined about their schoolwork than males. They study harder and get better grades. Girls constantly outperform boys academically. Women may feel pressure on them because of these effects of bad grades at home. Kent expresses, college women are working harder and feeling more stressed while their male counterparts are having a good time. In other words, while guys will be partying and having a good time, women will be putting their focus into studying and working. Due to being stressed in school, it commonly causes an increase in women having depression or anxiety. Kent states, more of them say that they frequently felt depressed in the last year, and more are worried about paying for college and feel insecure about their physical and emotional health. Speaking about college, men may not go to or even try in college. Stephen states, young men are less likely to enroll in college immediately after high school and are about 20% more likely to drop out of college. In college, male students perform more poorly than do their female counterparts, recording lower GPAs and earning fewer credit hours. Women are more likely to take education to their advantage, but it does come with a downfall. Furthermore, women handle so much mentally. American Psychological Association states, women are more likely than men to report having a great deal of stress, demonstrates how women have so much on their plate. According to Gina's feelings on her job, I was extremely unmotivated because I felt like I was spending all hours of the day trying not to fall off an accelerating treadmill, she explains. But at the same time, I felt like I was being trusted less and less to be able to do a good job. And I could feel my career slipping through my fingers, and there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. Gina tried her hardest to keep her job, but mentally she was slipping. And states, women are more likely to have mental health problems than men, with young women at the particularly high risk. To add, younger women are also more likely than men to struggle with addiction to substances such as nicotine to help create a kind of therapy for these mental issues. According to Reddit responding to the question, why are women more stressed than males? We are twice as likely to suffer from anxiety disorders and 2.5 times as likely to develop depression. The reasons for these gender differences are complex, but include elements of role strain and tendency to internalize negative feelings. Overall, 1 in 5 women develop depression in their lives. To elaborate, depression comes commonly to women because they're likely to internalize symptoms of mental health disorder when men externalize them. To wrap everything up, women have so much more than men to carry on their shoulders, including physically, educationally, and mentally. Women are usually seen as the weaker gender, but I strongly disagree. And hey, maybe men aren't as strong as they think they are.
We definitely thank you, Kaylee, and I hope you guys give some more consideration to the women in your lives here soon. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
I have a proclamation here I'm going to read. It's for National Safe Boating Week. Columbia County, Florida Proclamation 2022 P-06, a proclamation by the Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, Columbia County, Florida, designating this week of May 21st through May 27th, 2022 as National Safe Boating Week. Whereas for over 100 million Americans, boating continues to be a popular recreational activity. From coast to coast and everywhere in between, people are taking to the water, enjoying time together, boating, sailing, paddling, and fishing. During National Safe Boating Week, the U.S. Coast Guard and its federal, state, and local safe boating partners encourage all boaters to explore and enjoy America's beautiful waters responsibly. Whereas safe boating begins with preparation, the Coast Guard estimates that human error accounts for most boating accidents and that life jackets could prevent nearly 86% of boating fatalities. Through basic boating safety procedures, carrying life-saving emergency distress and communications equipment, wearing life jackets, attending safe boating courses, participating in free boat safety checks, and staying sober when navigating, we can help ensure boaters on America's coastal, inland, and offshore waters stay safe throughout the season. Whereas National Safe Boating Week is observed to bring attention to important life-saving tips for recreational boaters so that they can have a safer, more fun experience out on the water throughout the year. Whereas an average of 650 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the U.S., 75% of these are fatalities caused by drowning. And whereas the vast majority of the accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat equipment or environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters who lose their lives by drowning each year would be alive today had they worn their life jackets. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Columbia County do hereby support the goals of the Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 21st through May 27th, 2022 as National Safe Boating Week and the start of this year-round effort to promote safe boating. Attested by James Swisher and Robbie Hollingsworth, Chairman of the County Commission. Do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Is this, okay, we got the safe boating guy here. You want to take a picture?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Sorry,
Taking the picture. All right, we have Tommy Brown, Supervisor of Elections.
Good evening, everybody. I've created some packages for everyone. I'll pass in just a minute, but I just wanted to give you an update on what's going on over in our world, and I wanted to give a special thanks to the commissioners. My building's looking amazing, and it's meeting all my mandates, and so I'm very pleased with the way things are going. So thank you very much for that. I have, according to Florida statute, I'm required anytime we have new precincts in our county, I'm required to have those presented before the board and a resolution drawn up, and then that resolution gets sent to the division of elections for approval. So I'm a little probably behind the schedule on this because of the progressional district line is still in litigation. Over the past week, we have gone from District 3 congressionally to 2 to 5, and it's in litigation again. Hopefully we'll know something by tomorrow. Could technically go back to 3, could stay 5 and 2. Who knows what we're going to be? So it's got me somewhat, if you see my eye twitching, if that's why. So anyway, so what I prepared is a package here. And what it has is right now the front map that is, in fact, it's Plan A is what they're calling it. This map did not come from the Division of Elections. It's presented by the plaintiffs. And so it's not real clear. So we have taken the opportunity to draw a little, we've given you a little diagram of where Columbia County falls in on that Plan A map. It's being drawn, so I'm getting the artistic work there. Kind of shows you where we fall at the moment. So pending this result, it's got my whole election process on hold. So right now, what we have done is, I believe Joel has got the resolution where if we could go ahead and get a resolution signed regarding our new poll precincts, then I can go ahead and start working on what I need to do in order to get this election moving. In that paperwork, you'll see we have 29 precincts. Before we had 22. We had, in the prior elections, we had 9 polling locations. We now have 11. Deep Creek is reopening. And we also have one in Watertown on Washington Street. It's at our new warehouse. We have created it into a polling location. And so I think that'll help the people, District 1 and District 4, and with the voting process to smooth a little, be easier, a little easier access to those points. So there's also a sheet in there that kind of gives you demographics on the area, if anybody's concerned or interested in that. I know tonight is not the time probably you to just dissect that paperwork, but if you have any questions, please call the office. We'll be glad to walk you through anything in our processes as far as getting this election moving and these changes. At the bottom of the pages, you'll see where right now, if we were to move back into District 5 and 2, there will be 2 precincts that will be affected by that. You'll see that precinct 17 will increase, where precinct 15 will decrease. And I believe it's precinct 16 will, 4 precincts will be affected, 4 that'll be affected. So some will increase, some will decrease because the line will be shifted. So, but if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer anything that I possibly can to the best of my ability. Yes, sir.
I want to be the first to thank you from District 1
Yes, sir.
and the voters of District 1 by installing those precincts that was cut and adding one in the Watertown area.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that it benefits the county.
So you're kind of, Tommy, you're kind of on pins and
I'm on
needles,
hold.
trying to find out what you're supposed to
That's
do. Yeah. So
It's taken me approximately, or my staff, which I'm so thankful for, because we, at this moment, we outsourced a lot of our mapping, and then the rest of it we've done in-house. So these guys have really come to the table and gotten some work done, but it's also taken us almost 2 months. So now they're wanting us to, once these lines get moved, we've got to condense all that work that we've done in 2 months into 2 weeks now. It's not going to affect the whole county, and it's doable. But because there is a short window, anytime you're doing something that detailed, there's always room for error. And that's what concerns me more than anything, because we're going street by street, voter by voter, and we're checking addresses to make sure people are in their proper district. So, but we're doing the best we can with what we got.
Mr. Chair, to elaborate on the supervisor's point, Florida statutes, section 101.001 says that the Board of County Commissioners shall, with the advice and consent of the supervisor, adopt precincts. the midterm elections are coming up quick. Those of you who are running know that August is coming very fast. Supervisor has to plan for all that, to the inclusion of sending out quite a bit of mail, what, $30,000 or $40,000 worth of mail?
We'll be sending out new voter registrations card because
Right.
everything has changed
So,
at the extent of $35,000.
yeah. So to do that, she has to go through the process in 101.001, which includes you guys. The problem is the circuit and federal courts are bouncing this district back and forth literally every day right now. I think it was different on Monday, then it was something different on Tuesday. So we submitted the map on Tuesday. They called me back Wednesday morning and said, oh, they changed it again last night. So what you have right now is very unlikely to be the final product. So the way I drafted the resolution that you'll vote on later in this meeting is to provide a provision where you say you understand that, and that if the supervisor has to take last minute action to correct something based on what the judiciary or the legislature do, that she'll just come back to you for ratification. So we're trying to stay in compliance with the statute. She also doesn't want to do 2 mailings, because if
Correct.
she's forced to do 2 mailings, and it's in the resolution as well, she's going to come back to y'all for another $30,000, $40,000 because she'll have to. And so she's very concerned. I want to echo her compliments to her staff also. They've stayed on top of this. There's only 3 counties that are freaked out by this the way we are: Leon, Duval, and Columbia, because we're the only 3 counties that are split by this process. Everybody else is either going to be all in one or all in another. But because we're split, like she said, there's various outcomes that we can't predict, because nobody frankly can predict what the courts are doing right now.
Exactly.
So if she just, I think the main thrust of her presentation tonight was to let you know this and to ask for your understanding. And then the resolution she requested be drafted that you'll look at later in the meeting reflects that understanding. So if you have any questions in that vein while she's here, I'd encourage you to ask them.
The last page that I gave you was the conclusion of where the stay they had put on the original map the governor signed into place was lifted. So I didn't know if you'd be interested in that or not, but I wanted to show you that, which means that we reverted back to congressional 5 and 2.
Any questions, anybody?
I just want to thank y'all for all y'all do. I know from working with you 2 years ago, you guys do an amazing job, and this has presented you with quite the challenge, but, you know, and knowing your staff, I think that the job will
We'll do
handle
the
it
best
pretty
we
well.
can.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
So thank y'all.
Yep, thank you.
I went to the Tommy Brown School of Education this afternoon, so I got it firsthand.
Tommy, how bad is it affecting y'all that the school board didn't adopt the new district line in the county?
It's the reason it has created more precincts. Originally, we would have done splits. Technically it would have caused splits. Splits can be very complicated and confusing at a polling location. You've got a ballot that says 10A, 10B. It can easily be pulled. The wrong ballot can be pulled, and we don't want that to happen. So what we've done is created the extra precincts in lieu of the splits. That's costing a little bit more money in order to do that. Probably the biggest expense is going to be if the school board comes back next year and decides to redistrict, then I've got to send voter cards out again to everybody that's affected by the new districts changes.
Send them a bill.
So, all of that it will cost money. And technically, if there's nobody to do the mapping at that point, I'll have to outsource it again as well. So to outsource what we've done so far has cost right at $30,000, the work that we've done.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that the school board district and the board of county commissioner district haven't been the same since about 82.
To my knowledge, you're correct. So, yeah, it did cause some problems. So, but we do what we've got to do with what we're presented. So, but like I said, next year or when they do decide to redistrict again, it's going to be quite costly to do.
Any more questions or comments for Tom?
That's all I
Thank you
got.
very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Foreman?
So we don't have to read
Yeah, we have to make a motion.
It's on
No.
the agenda later.
We'll call up
It's
the
on the agenda
resolution
later for
during
a
action.
Oh, okay. It's on the.
Yeah, it'll be
okay,
out. Yeah,
okay,
later.
okay, okay.
Come on, Mr. Foreman.
Yes, sir. For public hearing this evening, got an adoption hearing for ordinance number 2022-02, amending our solid waste ordinance to provide for changes to the code respecting grease and oil traps. If you'll recall from the night that I requested the setting of the adoption hearing, the Department of Environmental Protection had put the county under a consent order following an oil spill that affected the Ellisville wastewater plant. The changes that are proposed in the draft ordinance are approved by DEP to comply with the consent order. And therefore, obviously, staff is strongly encouraging the board to adopt this as is. I'm happy to entertain any questions. Otherwise, I'd ask the chair to open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-02.
I now hereby open the public hearing on the ordinance number 2022-02 on the grease and oil traps. Do we have any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'll now close the public hearing. And
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2022-02.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second public hearing I have for this evening is an adoption hearing for ordinance number 2022-03. This ordinance, if adopted, will include prohibitions against solicitation and loitering in and around county buildings. We had some discussion of this at the meeting where I requested the setting of the adoption hearing, but essentially these prohibitions go hand in hand and would prohibit anybody from loitering without purpose in and around county buildings. This would include the curtilage. So if there's a road, as over at the administration offices, there's a road that cuts between the parking lot and the building. This would only apply to the building side of the road. The parking lot is not affected by this ordinance. However, at the library where the parking lot adjoins the building, it goes all the way to the public right of way. I'll make that clear because there were some questions about that after the last hearing, the last meeting. If there's any questions or concerns, I'm happy to address them. Otherwise, I'd ask the chair to open the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-03.
Okay, I'm now opening the public hearing on ordinance number 2022-03, prohibiting solicitation and loitering. Is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a vote. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2022-03, prohibiting solicitation and loitering in and around county buildings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, Mr. Foreman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Next item I have on the agenda is a request for final action on the request of Sweetwater Apartments Phase 2 for funding. The board will recall there have been several meetings over the past, I want to say, year plus, including requests from the developers of Sweetwater Apartments Phase 2 for a $3 million loan that would be repaid on 15 to 17-year terms with no interest. The board will recall that Mr. Kraus and I engaged the services of a third-party public resources advisory group, specifically Marianne Edmonds, a member of that group who has extensive experience in public finance related to low-income housing of the kind that they wanted to construct here. We did have Ms. Edmonds work closely with the developers' representatives. She vetted their underwriting for their loans, their public loans that are coming from Tallahassee and other funding sources outside the county. She worked with them to reduce their ask from $3 million to $900,000, which is the scope of their request tonight. And then she did provide, at mine and Mr. Kraus's request, a written opinion of her evaluation of the project, which I have provided to you on pages 22 and 23 and 24 of your packet, along with my memo just outlining what I've just stated. I'm happy to address any questions I can. Mr. Kraus was also fairly involved in the process here. But ultimately, we're at the juncture where the board needs to decide whether to grant the request or move on from it.
Any discussion?
David,
Yes,
where
sir.
would you get the funding for this if we approve this?
Well, there'd be a couple different places you could look. You would probably, since it is not in the current budget, you could put it in next year's budget. You could take it from contingency, or you would have to pull it from reserves.
What is your opinion on being able to afford this at this time with the cost of material and gas and oil? And I mean, we know we're gonna have to come up with, I know we have grant funded projects that we're gonna have to subsidize. I'll put it that way.
Right.
What-
Later on in tonight's meeting, we'll be talking about the fact that the cost of projects have gone up tremendously and that we will be several $1 million short on our grant-funded projects with the cost of asphalt going up. And it's going to make funding projects more difficult. Because of that, I would recommend putting it in next year's budget so that you can consider it with the capital projects as you would all capital projects. I think the developer would like to answer more quickly than that, but I think my recommendation would be to understand your financial situation before you make a decision.
We've heard a lot about this, and it's apartments and everything, but with a 30% increase in many of the things we're doing, we're talking about millions of dollars we're gonna have to come up, we didn't know we were gonna have to come up with. This is $1 million, pretty much. And how long will this be tied up, Mr. Foreman?
17 years.
It's basically.
15 years?
The loan is the 15-year term, but it's more like a 17-year payback.
So-
I do want to remind the commission that our auditor advised that this would be viewed by the auditor as a grant because of the low interest nature of the loan.
Right. I just, with all the things coming up, if we give this $1 million, we're not able to give it to fund, things we need to fund for the taxpayer. And I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna have the money. It's a lot of money.
Well, as I was reviewing it, I guess the first thing caught my attention, 3,900,000. That was a pretty good negotiator. I want her on my side. And basically with no explanation. So that puts the Tim Murphy thought in that I want to go negotiate with them and get that $230,000 per unit cost down. Because, I built my fair share of real estate in my life, and $230,000 dollars for 700-800 square foot. Even though we are in a crisis time, I can't support it at this point. And with everything else the other commissioners are saying, but my numbers ain't jiving right now.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
This project have been in the process of being approved through private, state funding, government funding. As far as local funding goes, we know that there is a need for this type of development, especially in the area where he is proposed to go. We know the board in the past thought it was a good project. This board bought the property for this project or years ago. So at that time, the board had also had the concept of it being a good project and within the area that it was proposed to be located in. And I realized that over the last 3 years, there's been pros and cons about the county going in with a private individual or a private nonprofit organization to develop affordable housing. But it's being done throughout the state of Florida. I can't speak for anywhere else except for the state of Florida. Matter of fact, Last week, I believe it was St. Johns County, I'm not for sure, don't hold me on that, is partnering for over $150 million project for affordable housing in that county. Now, if I have the wrong county, I'm sorry for that, but I do know that it's being done. Now, can this board afford it at this time? It's about asking me to look at that bull out there in the field and tell you how much the price of butter gonna be. I just can't do it. But it's a liable project. It would really bring a part of a blighted neighborhood back to life. It would give the people that really need affordable housing the ability to have a decent place to stay. Is it the government responsibility to assist? I say yes, it is, but it also depends on the availability of the fund to do so. So I still believe it's a viable project, it's a worthwhile project, and it is a needed project, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion?
Well, I wish that the $900 ask had been there, the $900,000 ask had been there from the beginning, because I think the $3 million ask kind of scared this board off from the beginning, and now it's changed to $900,000. As somebody who sat on the homeless committee, affordable housing comes up often, and this board does need to address affordable housing. I'm hearing the comments that the commissioners are kind of skittish about this project, but $900,000 for a return on investment for what, 17 million? To me, if everything lines up, which sounds like a good return on investment. However, we don't know where the funding is. I wish that 900,000 number was there back when, we had the COVID funds coming in, and one of the COVID directives was, use these funds for affordable housing, but this wasn't a viable project back then for those funds. So, I'm not opposed to doing this type project where you have a return on investment for the county, but I do get why my colleagues on the board are skittish about it with all we're facing this budget year. And you certainly couldn't do anything right now with this not being budgeted before you go through the budget process in the next couple of months, because we don't know what that's gonna give us. So.
And I kind of agree with Commissioner Murphy. I kind of question the $230,000 per price tag per unit when you're talking about 850 to 1,000 square foot per unit. I mean, that seems like a high price per square foot on this, and that might be legitimate at today's prices. I don't know, but I agree with y'all. We need affordable housing in Columbia County, and this might be I suspect this probably is a pretty good project. But to go from 3 million to 900,000, it just raises a lot of questions for me also. I mean, it's almost like they shot for the moon and then took what they figured they needed. I mean, I kind of question where the other $2 million was going to go if we had agreed to it from the start. I don't know.
Well, I think the $3 million in the first figure that were presented to the board was numbers put together by their financial team to correspond with what they could get from the federal government and state government funding. And after the board said, I guess sometime back, a couple of months back, 3-4 months ago, if we don't know whether we can afford the $3 million at this time. Joel, they went back and recalibrated or shift some money around to be able to bring that down to the 900,000.
Yes, sir. We were very frank with them about the fact that the 3 million was probably going to be insurmountable. We charged Miss Edmonds, because again, she has extensive experience with doing these projects across the state, to review their financials. And she did. She reviewed their underwriting that they'd filed with and been approved with the state through. And she was basically able to analyze that per unit figure as well as there's a lot of things in play in these projects that don't come across as common sense to most of us. One of them is the tax credits that they're afforded and how those get negotiated, and what the value of those is, and how that impacts the overall cost of the project. Ms. Edmonds understands that stuff a lot better than we do. So she basically worked very closely with their financial people, just basically told them to sharpen their pencils. Like Mr. Murphy said, she was a tough negotiator. But at the end of the day, she could not get them any lower than the 900 to make the project still work. Now, I do want to point out, in her opinion, at the 900 level, she felt like it was a reasonable request and it was a good value for the Board of County Commissioners. She did agree with us that 3 million did not present the same value for the county. So talking to David, talking to Ms. Edmonds, this was going to be the best ask that they could make, and this was our best understanding of the way the ask worked, and that's why it's in front of you tonight. As David indicated, if you want to kick the can for a few weeks, you could put this into budget and see if you can find the money. But as David also said, the developer really wants an answer.
Now, having said that, the reason we say you can put it in next year's budget, and Joel and I had this conversation with the financial advisor, is once you commit, you still have to go through the process of the contracts and the paperwork and everything else, and the actual need for the dollars probably will not occur till after October.
So Joel or David, it said final action.
Yes, sir.
If we take no action tonight and let this go through our budget process and do everything stops or go on hold or just kills it by the board not taking action tonight?
The action that I would request, Commissioner Williams, would be to make that motion, that it be something that be considered during the budget process. I don't want you to take no action because I feel like we owe the developer an answer of some sort at this juncture. We're not going to get any more information or any different opinion from Ms. Edmonds, so there's really no reason for delay. So if it's something the board wants to consider through the budget, you could still decide not to budget it, not to fund it. But if you want to have that additional time, I would just ask for a motion to that effect.
Well, I think that by doing that, it would give a transparency whether this board do or do not accept the recommendation. It put the transparency there. You have to be very optimistic. I always say I believe in miracles. There might be a miracle between now and the time we deal in the budget process. So instead of killing it tonight, I would like to see it put on hold and be part of the 2022, 2023 budget process.
I have one question. It says she recommends this, assuming the following conditions are met. Have we assured that these conditions have been met? As far as the funding sources identified in the report are firmly committed, and Sflp Management Group provides a satisfactory final credit underwriting report.
Yes, sir. She feels confident those things will occur. They're just things that necessarily can't occur yet. And so she was encouraging us, if we were to say, hey, you can have our 900,000, don't say that without conditioning it this way. She's just given us some good advice there, Mr. Commissioner. She feels fairly confident. And again, she reviewed the underwriting. She spoke to the people. She knows the projects. She feels confident it's all going to go through, which again, that's something that we couldn't answer before we had our team. That was part of the reason we went through this process. I don't think any of the answers you have tonight are going to change between now and budgets, and doing the budget. So the only question is revenue and whether or not you can pay for it.
To me, it's like Mr. Ford said, and like I think a couple others saying, and I understand what Ron's saying, but we don't know how much money we have. We don't know how much we're going to have after all these increases. And we have major highways, and we have been given money by the DOT that we have to cover the overages, and it comes up to millions of dollars. So I think you could put it in the next budget process, and then we know what we have and what we don't.
And I
And
have
the
no
DOT,
problem rolling it to the next
Yeah.
budget process and looking at what we have at that point. Because, I mean, it is a good, I think it probably is a good project if we can afford it. But,
I gotta tell you what, I move that we put this off until the budget process so that we know how much money we have, if we have it to spend, and consider it during the budget process. And if, that's what we'll have to do.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Sweetwater Apartment Phase 2 funding request be part of our budget discussions in the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget.
You can take that as a second, Mr. Chair.
All right. We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kirby.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have 10 items for consideration this evening. I'll capture the first two, with your permission, up front that are not on the agenda. A meeting or two ago, I was requested to take a look at what it would cost us to go into the mowing business on the roadside rural mowing ourselves. That will come in at about $615,000 to get it started up, with about a $250,000 annual reoccurring cost. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, I'm not requesting a motion or a vote on that tonight. But Commissioner Williams, I believe, was the commissioner who requested that information. That's your numbers today, Commissioner. And I don't know what your numbers will be tomorrow, but today that's your numbers.
and that initial investment is the equipment cost?
Yes, sir. You'll come in at about $370 of equipment, $245 on labor, totaling $615 annually, the $245,000 reoccurring labor cost.
So how many employees would that incur?
All right, that would be six employees.
6 employees.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Basically,
what would you do with these employees in the wintertime?
we have plenty.
You have plenty to do with?
Yes, sir. 38,000 for the crew leader, 35,000 for the operator, for the maintenance techs, 3 of them, 96 totality, including your benefits of 76,000. That gives you 245.
Could you email that report out? to each one?
Sure. So that's for informational purposes of this board.
Yeah.
Right now, we're in compliance with contract. We do have some issues. Overall, everything's going good with all 4 of our contracts. But for right now, that is your information. If you choose for me to get any deeper in it, just let me know, and I will email it to all of you guys.
Mr. Kirby, the mowing contract for all phases, whether urban or whatever, started the 1st of May or June, 1st of April.
In the month of April, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
the month of April.
Yes, sir.
So we are almost 2 months into the cycle.
What date did we start, Clint?
Couple of contracts started April 1, 2 of the other contracts started April 15.
So we're still somewhere around a month and a half, 2 months into
Yes, sir.
the mowing. And are you saying that everything is where it should be as far as the timeline goes?
So remember, we have 2 separate contractors with 4 contracts.
Yeah.
Okay. The contractor that was so problematic last year is doing great this year. The roadside, the rural mowing, who also has retention funds, is that right, Clint? He's having a staffing problem. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, his crew walked off. I think I told you, he hired crew up again. Now a new crew has walked off.
The new crew have walked.
Yes, sir. He's not delinquent, but he's having a staffing problem. You will remember, we always questioned the cost of this contract.
Well,
That ain't good.
Commissioners, what I would recommend is let me go through these 10 items here tonight, and when I get to a couple items, I think as somebody indicated earlier about revenue sources, I would just strongly recommend us not take action on any of this tonight. He's currently in compliance. Do I think he'll be in compliance if something doesn't change? Probably not.
And Kirby, you and Mr. Pittman, I know that you all got the same calls that we got,
Sure.
but people talk to us a little different than they talk to y'all. when they're mad.
Yes, sir.
They say things to us that they won't say to you guys. And we had some awful lot of things said to us last year about mowing.
Yes, sir.
And this board said that we don't want to ever go through that again. So I'm concerned now.
Yes, sir.
And you know, it's our fault. We set a preference out there how we want our roadway to look. And we've been doing that for many years and improving on it year after year after year. And then once you get a situation where everything goes south, people start calling and say, my grass hasn't been cut this year.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, it's one of those things that we really need to get a handle on.
Well, I'll make a commitment with y'all's permission. I'll come back at the next meeting and give you another update. That's your number, 615 overall, 250.
But right now, everything's up to,
Right now. Now, common sense works. If you can't hire a crew up,
well,
that probably won't be the case in the immediate future.
Mr. Kirby, why,
Everything's up on the end they started on. But when you get to my end and off the end, it ain't up. I got grass this out already.
Mr. Kirby, why do we have such a problem finding somebody to mow for us? Is there something we're being unrealistic about or in some way maybe?
I think Commissioner Williams hit the nail on the head. Somewhere around the past, we were more into, instead of mowing for safety, we got mowing for safety and cosmetics. Okay?
You know,
And then the part that I'll never understand is how cheap it goes for in this day and time. I can't answer. We have one bidder. I'll remind you, we have one bidder on that.
that's what I don't understand. One bidder for something, you would think at least two would bid on it when other guys bid it on other contracts, you know?
Yes, sir.
I just thought maybe we're holding them to a higher standard or something on something.
if the contractor is mowing for us, I know he's mowing for the state too, because I see his equipment mowing state roads too. Is he mowing for the state? For the
Yes, sir.
same price he's mowing for us?
Oh, no, sir. If you'll recall back in the day, Clint and I worked on an exercise where we did a study through FDOT District 2, and we come up with the cost per mile, et cetera, et cetera. It is tremendously more than what ours is.
Can you explain that, why he's mowing for us so cheap? I mean, is he,
What I will tell you,
or when he's mowing for us, why he's mowing so cheap?
so this is what I do know. This board heard presentations from multiple department heads this morning as it relates to the budget process. I will personally present the Public Works budget in a couple weeks. You're going to hear, because I didn't really capture it until I put it together the other day, $800,000 of an increase, 400 in fuel and 400 is in mowing. That's what we've done through time, adding all these contracts now. So I would just strongly recommend, right now he's in compliance, as Commissioner Williams indicated, not on his end. Let's take a look at it in a couple weeks. I think we'll hear some other stuff here tonight. We can make some reasonable decisions. Okay. Mr. Chair, you good with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the second item is simply a housekeeping item. This board previously approved resolution number 2022-R11. This is for the River Rise boat ramp improvements that are mandated to be done. I'm asking for approval of resolution number 2022-R25, which is simply a resolution amendment of the former resolution based on some script error. I
So
request
moved.
that motion.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is your equipment replacement policy removal. So back in 18, the board at that time adopted equipment replacement policy. I picked 3 examples from last year. It simply isn't working. It's inflated. So if you'll take a look at the example I provided, last year, the policy indicated $498,000 at Public Works, when in reality, $396, landscape 268 versus 127, the landfill 505,403. So we just want to be transparent. We don't want to come in here and say, based on the policy, we need X amount of dollars, tuck it into the budget. We have to be lean and transparent, in my opinion.
So when this money's in this, once you budget this money for this, for equipment, it's earmarked for equipment, you can't use it anywhere, right? I mean.
Not necessarily.
No.
That's why I'm wanting to get away from it. This is an effort of transparency. I picked 3 examples.
Right.
I've never seen it when it was backwards since it was formed. I've just never seen it the other way. So we did not follow it last year because we were trying to be real lean. And so David and I talked, we don't need to be not following an adopted policy. So once again, this year, when we were taking a look at it, I saw the inflated numbers once again. So I am recommending remove that policy.
Well, Kevin, what do we do? What will we do to, no doubt the policy that I voted on, of course, it was a 5-0 vote. What do we do to enhance it? What do we do to correct the measures in it? I mean, just to wipe the policy out and just run wild.
No, sir, we've never run wild. We've always done a 5-year history, and it holds as true. Now, it might not today with these prices, but back before this policy, we simply did a 5-year history, and it holds as true. If it's $500,000 annually for this department, if it's 300,000, whatever the math is, we had a meeting. It holds as true, and that's the way we always did it. The thought process was to go and, I think what Commissioner Ford said a while ago, okay, go in there and put a policy together. You take that number, you earmark, you allocate it, you roll it over. I've not seen that done.
Mhm. Well, I guess what I'm saying, Kevin, is that would it not make sense to, bring this proposal back, the 5-year history, like you're saying you used to do, but before we just sit here and kill a total policy that, we had months and months workshops on that, I didn't hear the rejection and I understand we said it was a work in progress, but, I remember myself and Ron, we were here, we sat to a lot of darn meetings on this thing. I mean, and I definitely try, because Clint made a very good point this morning in his presentation. What was it, Clint, 100 and something thousand, then got cut to 50 last year or something like that. The Board of County Commissioners did cut to 50. The presentation was brought up, as a whole. But we didn't go in there and dissect Clint's budget, individually.
Commissioner Murphy, this is what I know. We never had a written policy that related to equipment replacement. We just had a routine procedure that worked for years. That policy is not working. It has not worked since it was done.
Well, I agree. I agree it needs tweaking, but I'm not about killing deep. I couldn't support killing the policy without an updated version of what path we're gonna go. That's all.
So what is your proposal, Kevin, to do?
I have no problem forming a policy that says staff will review a 5-year history and present that. Here's what this board needs to always remember. Even though we put budgets and whatnot, we never buy a piece of equipment that does not come from this board for approval. So to me, it's redundant. That's my opinion. It's not like I can go out there and buy a bulldozer or buy a pan or buy an excavator, buy a pickup truck. Every purchase goes back from this board.
Well, I know on the 5 years that we previously used to do, and I'm gonna use Clint as an example because Clint's presentation of real need, as the board before and the board now keeps putting more and more and more on landscaping, and then Clint's sitting there with all these other needs, and it wasn't getting funded in the 5-year. And so even though like last year, and I'm just going to use an example, we'll just say that Clint's actual needs this year is $396. Well, Clint gets funded $100,000. So the thing I liked about the replacement policy is that Clint knows enough about his operation. He come up here one year and say, okay, well, I can get by with $106,000 this year, but it was this board's responsibility with that money sitting right there. You could sit there and take $50,000, put it in escrow for Clint's landscaping department. That was the whole theory behind the discussion in many, many workshops. And that's what I liked about it, is because when Clint ran, that's that little thing, and it's pennies when you're talking about $1 million, but like Clint said, he's paying, what is it, $150, $200 on that one little unit that you're talking about. But I know, and what was it, Clint, 3 years ago, I can't remember the exact piece of equipment, but it just, I don't have all the answers, but I do know on the 5 year, I felt like it was a time that we could start setting money aside for landscaping, public work. And what did we just do on the, of course, that was an insurance issue, at the dump. But, in a course, it brought, transparency to the, situation. But Kevin, you are right. Every single purchase does come to the board,
Hey, Kirby, let me ask you something. Can I?
Wait.
Who uses this policy? Who practices the use of this? Puts it down in front of them and practices it?
So it's a
No, no,
very
no.
laborious effort.
Right.
You go and based on the policy, you go and you check box after box, you go and inspect, and it just is not applicable to what we do.
What I'm saying is, who does it?
Me,
You. Okay, so that's why I'm going to make a motion to remove the equipment placement policy, because it's not us doing it, it's him. And if he says it's a bad policy, I believe it's a bad policy. So if you want to speak, Commissioner Williams.
And I was gonna take a recommendation, motion to remove the equipment replacement
Okay,
policy.
there's a second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
thank y'all. The next item up for consideration is a revised job description for traffic ops supervisor. To refresh this board's memory, a few years ago, we got fortunate enough to get a man certified in red lights and cabinets and all that interest as it relates. So basically what we knew as the sign shop is now a traffic operations center. We focus as much or more on the traffic ops side of things than we do signage. We've completely, I'm proud to say, eliminated contractual services as a result of this. So basically, what does this do? Assist us, traffic signal techs with the trouble calls, available to fill in for traffic signal standby duties as needed, detailed recording of preventative maintenance and emergency repairs to traffic. Basically, request the pay grade from 115 to negotiable. We have been able to conserve money by elimination of contracting. So I'm requesting approval of revised job descriptions and pay grade.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
I think this position, Kevin, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, has saved us thousands of dollars over the years by having.
To the tune, if you back that man's salary out, at least $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good hire. Okay. The next item is bid number 2022-04, paving project of Eloise, Lamont, Oakland, and Kirk. We had 2 responsive bidders. Anderson Columbia Company was low at $403,371.54. Therefore, I'm requesting a motion to award the bid to the lowest bidder, the Anderson Columbia Company, in the amount of $403,371.54, using account number 303-8082-54-130-46, and to authorize the execution of the construction agreement. This is a Commissioner Williams' district.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the bid award. Kevin, this bid award here reflects what we'll have to pay now and in the future with the cost of asphalt, right?
Yes, sir. I have an agenda item in a couple minutes that we're going to get into some detail about that. Yes, sir.
So can we almost say that this bid should have came in way under $300,000?
No, sir. This one didn't get hit that hard because what's just happened the last 14 days, this was right on the edge of that. So this inflated a little bit, but it's still relatively where it should, I guess it should be. But that does not reflect what I'm getting ready to talk to you guys about.
Okay, all right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you. The next is bid number 2022, fire station number 51 expansion. So we did receive 4 qualified bids. This is over at the fire department on Lake Jeffrey Highway. You had 4 responsive bidders. Plum level was at $126,663. That did come in within the estimated budget. Recommended motion to award the bid to the lowest bidder, Plum Level Construction, in the amount of $126,663, and to enter to a construction contract with that bidder.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is down in Ellisville, and I'm not requesting a vote. This is an update. If you'll remember a while back, we knew we had to go from 25,000 gallons to 50,000 gallons at our sewer plant down in Ellisville. Simultaneous, we were brought knowledge that we had some more companies potentially coming on board, which would require us to immediately expand another 25,000 gallons to a totality of 75,000. At that time, I requested this board to shore up the grant with the additional monies to go to the 75,000. And that was great. We got the contractor to mirror his image and pricing unit values, and hopefully basically go away from mobilization, trying to save money. The rules are continuously changing as it relates to sewer plants, so I'm learning. As a result, the purpose of this item is an update. We are going to move forward with the 50,000 gallon expansion, the new 25 to give a totality of 50, and we're going to continue the permit process for the other 25. But based on all the rules, all the changes, and the grant timing, if we don't go ahead and move forward with this next 25, it's just not working. It's going to work out at the end of the day. I don't think we're going to be able to capture our mobilization costs that we were going to save and all. Right now, the contractor's still willing to keep on with the unit prices. But I just wanted this board to be aware, we got to back up punt, time's running out. We need to move on with the additional 25, totality of 50. In the process, we will continue working on the other 25 to give us 75. Okay? This is for information. Okay, next one is Special Family Lot Permit Application SFLP 2210. So this item was pulled from the consent agenda and tabled for additional review. Property owners have revised the property plan to address the concerns. This is a Commissioner Ford's district. I've spoken with him about it. The concern was roughly 15 acres had more than one split. And also there was concern about a resale. Since then, the Boyette family has met with a county attorney, foreman, Commissioner Ford, myself. They have resubmitted a drawing that does not show multiple splits, and they have entered into a letter of agreement for no sale and no trade of what kind for a minimum of 10 years. So, Mr. Chairman, I am recommending a motion to move forward for approval of SFLP 2210.
I'll make a motion, we approve SFLP 2210.
Second. We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, I'm not requesting a vote on. I'm needing some direction before, this is going to be a very laborious task for me. So if I don't get the indication from this board they're interested in it, I won't waste my time. I've done some research. Several weeks ago, multiple contractors reached out to me in writing and said, look, this 300-foot setback as it relates to borrow pits simply is not working. You guys have the strictest rules in the land with the exception of another county or two. I've done some research and what I've found, that's true. That's true. So the 300-foot setback to dig a legal borrow pit, in their opinion, is going to drive the cost of dirt through the roof with today's times. There's many options out there if this board so directs me to look into. What are those options? Don't have one blanket policy. If you're in ag land, you're in the middle of the woods, reduce the setback. If you're behind a residential neighbor, keep the setback. Require, instead of vertical slope, require a 4-to-1, a 6-to-1, make them grass it back. But when some of the guys reached out to me and says, you know, we got a 40-acre tract, or we got a legal borrow pit, but by the time I get ready to follow all these rules, I'm digging 17 acres or 40 acres. And it makes sense to me. I understand it. I've been in it my whole career. So I'm requesting direction from this board. Do you want me to go through the efforts of providing other means other than the 300-foot setback?
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Kevin, I agree in areas and I disagree in areas. I think there are areas where bar pits are located need to have a 300-foot buffer. And we're talking about the length of the football field. That's not very far to protect a residential area. And I do know that there's areas that where I have bar pits in my district that is not residential areas, And, it's, a lot of it just woods out there, and we still requiring the same setback. So I understand that that's not utilizing the 100% of the use of the land that is there in a situation. So and the board, going back, looking back through the past, that the board discussed that option years ago about the setback. And at that time, the board that I served with then agreed that the 300 setback was something that the 300-foot setback was something that was universal within this county. So there wasn't a discussion about, a big discussion about, well, I've got this and it should be this and it should be that. But we know as time progresses in the placement of bar pits in this county is fastly going away. And if there are areas out there where that could be modified, then I'm open for looking at a new proposal on the setbacks of a bar pit. And the thing with the 4-to-1 slopes and this and that, and also if there's a bar pit put in place, and this was the board concern back, if we allow a bar pit to go in place by a land use change, then we are liable for that change, in a sense of speaking with New York lawyers now. And we was just old boys, good old boys back 20 years, 30 years ago. But it have gotten so complicated with people suing. What happened, that something can happen on your property, and we was always concerned about, we gave that land use change to grant this to be done, and it wasn't done to all the T's and the I's was dotted and crossed, then we are liable for it. But I'm open to look at amendments or something else to get better use out of land, out of dirt pits.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Williams. And just to give an example, and I did not validate property lines because there are other counties. Gilchrist County has 30 foot from right of way. So for potable water, it has to be greater than 25, but less than 20, greater than 10, less than 25. Alachua County, 50 foot from right of way.
Hold on, Mr. Kirby. So you're telling me that Alachua County has easier restrictions than Columbia County?
Here's the one thing that I just haven't had time to validate. They all reference right of way. I've yet to see property lines. So what our rules are, 300 foot. So, right? So theoretically, you go if you got a square piece of dirt, 300 foot all the way around. But 30 foot, 50 foot, 30 foot. Gilchrist 30, Alachua 50, and Hamilton 30.
Well, it surely, even if they're going from the right of way, sounds like me, they're even maybe closer to the property line. So for us to have harder restriction in Alachua County is something I don't want to happen. So I would support this in every way. I'm just going to say.
Am I getting the general consensus from the board to go through, provide options to come back?
Well,
Yeah.
I know right now, if you got a residential house on a 20-acre field, but in your property, on a 20-acre property, not a half-acre lot subdivision, 20 acres, they'll be 300 foot from that property line.
Mm-hmm.
So, to start with, it's hard to meet the requirement we have in most areas of this county now. When you start talking about a 20-acre lot, I mean, that's a farm, in our county now, that's a farm. That's not a residential property. That's agriculture property.
And like you're saying, Rocky, if you got 20 or 30 or even 40 acres, you're going to use it you're not going to get the goodie out of it because you haven't come 300 foot in.
That's the thing.
I mean,
got
you might as well
40
sell it to
That is the contractor's argument.
Yeah,
you
it
You
ain't
got
good.
40 acres, you dig 17, 18
Well,
acres.
one just got approved in Columbia County, a 40-acre piece of land, square 40 acres. He can dig 14 acres of that 40 acres
And that doesn't make
and meet our rules. I mean, yeah, we definitely need to look at that.
Yeah, I agree. Here we are with our projects and all these state agencies and their rules are government in our way. And in this situation, we are the government in their way.
Yeah,
So-
we're having issues with water management. and we're just as bad
Yeah,
with this policy as anybody else is. So I
Mr.
don't,
Chairman, that's why.
I don't need to push anything. Do we need a motion or what?
No, sir. I've got my
Okay.
direction.
All right, okay.
But boy, here again, what led this to be the 300 feet was your developers. See, I'm gonna buy this piece of property, this piece of property, I'm gonna develop it. But this one John Doe over here want big old bar pit right side my property line, and it's gonna mess up my development. So, and that's when Columbia County growth spat was really going with subdivision popping up everywhere. And through our comprehensive land use plan, or LDR, that govern bar pits, that footage was put in place for that reason.
And it might have been good at the time, but I think it's time we look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I agree.
Yeah.
And I said I didn't mind
You know,
looking at that.
per case situation also.
Yeah, and this is gonna prevent us from having bar pits on every 20 acres. And to me, it would be a thing where now we'll have enough land, they can dig enough to handle all the contract. You won't have as many bar pit because they're trying to, there's only a few people that can do it. So they'll,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, but Commissioner Murphy just hit on a point that I think you guys need to keep in mind as you go forward in this. These are always special permits. They always come to your Board of Adjustments. I've sat in many, many hearings where people wanted to dig bar pits with these regulations, and because the adjoining property owners opposed them, they were denied.
Yep.
Mr. Boone had one, I think, the most recent. So your setback, the setback is preventing people from even asking.
Yeah.
And I think what the contractor is asking for is to roll that setback so they can at least apply.
That is
If
correct.
you get a lot of vocal opposition and a lot of resistance to a borrow pit, even with a 100-foot setback or a 50-foot setback, they're probably not going to be granted anyway. So I think you've got good process. It's just a question of what properties could be eligible.
so there's a check and balance. So.
And this
it's not
is
just
something
gonna-
that we will have to bring back to this board as we draft the revised regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby, very much.
Okay, thank y'all. Okay. Asphalt. About 2 weeks ago, I got an email that said liquid is going up significantly, basically doubling. How do you make asphalt? Sand, various rocks, liquid, heat it, you have asphalt. I wasn't paying a lot of attention when it first came out. But as I started digging into it, started watching some pricing immediately after that, not on us yet. That equated to about a 33% per ton increase. Let's put that in perspective. On your grant-funded side of things currently, what do we have on the books? Grant-funded roads, roughly $20 million. Use that math. We've never had to shore those grants up with county monies. Very rare. $6 million. We had no idea 3 weeks ago about it. Nobody did. Let's put some more in perspective. We currently have a contract. They haul lime rock out of Brantford, Florida, to the Lake City shop down at Ellisville, down yard. Those contracts loaded, hauled, stockpiled, one's at $8 and change for the entire deal, one's for $10 and change. They sent a notice out as of June 1, lime rock at the mines is $10 a ton. Your contractor can't do that. Another contractor reached out to me, doing nothing but the sand hauling at the landfill. We can't continue doing this fuel. I have a contractor down Mr. Murphy's neck of the woods, got a 4,000 ton job. I called him yesterday. I asked the contractor, I said, are you aware of what's going on with asphalt the last 2 weeks? He said, I heard a little bit about it. I said, you lock in your prices at the old rate? He said, no. I told him what was happening. He got nervous real fast. I labeled it as asphalt pricing. That's where it starts. Gentlemen, we're going to see something. We're in the middle of something we've never seen. I brought it up tonight. Y'all were talking about revenues. Y'all were talking about funding this and that. I think only common sense will prevail. We're not going to walk away from $20 million worth of grant jobs, right? Sure. If you had asked me 3 weeks ago, I said those jobs are whole. That is not the case. And I don't see this changing. They say the fuel's gonna continue. Everything to do with road projects has to do with fuel, right? I do not see this changing whatsoever. So every budget that I've given y'all gotta recall, on those grant funded jobs, they're historically 4 to 5 years in advance. We always come in pretty close. That's out the window. You heard earlier in the day, we're doubling the fuel of every department. That comes up north of $1 million. Okay? So when we're going through this budget process, I'm not asking for direction tonight, but I will be in the near future. Before I say this, please, y'all don't shoot at me. Do we take a position? Do we kind of woe up on county funded projects to see what happens here? Do we focus only on grant funded projects? I don't know. I mean, how do you cover the unforeseen, right? You either get it out of reserves. I know you're not gonna raise taxes. Do you borrow the money? You suspend other capital projects that are 100% county funded? Those are all hard questions. That's happened in 2 weeks. I was told to expect about another 8 to 10% increase, and it should level out based on the liquid providers. That's what I've been told. I don't know that. But everything, the Lime Rock happened this morning. So everything we do out there, so when I prepared the public works budget for your guys' consideration a couple weeks, I left road materials the same. I've got to completely adjust that. Because I know I'm gonna get a phone call in just a day or two from our Lime Rock provider. They cannot haul it, buy it and haul it for less than they're paying for it. Concrete, I was told today is gonna go up to $160 a ton in June. A yard. But asphalt's held at 108, 110 a ton for 4 or 5 years. I'm seeing $146, $152 a ton. That's what's happening.
Kevin, if there's a shortage on the liquid, it's causing the price to go up. How confident are they even that they're gonna be able to get the liquid to make asphalt?
So let's give an example. Out on US 90 West right now, you see not a whole lot going on that paving project. They cannot get the liquid to do those state jobs right now. Commissioner Ford, it's so bad, and I think I shared this with Commissioner Murphy. Down on Old Wire Road, we got to mix that road, what we call full depth reclamation. Well, there's a brief period of time where that lime rock's exposed to that traffic. We don't like that. We try to cover it up immediately. Now my contractor's nervous, but before all this happened, when the liquid pricing, liquid shortage first come about, I had to really negotiate a time frame to promise us 2,000 tons of asphalt, put that bottom course on there so we wouldn't tear the road up. You follow me? We don't know.
And the reason I brought that up, I had someone tell me that basically they produce asphalt, that they don't even know if they're gonna be able to fulfill their contract with asphalt.
So you take a typical 10-mile section of interstate with 40 or 50,000 tons of mix, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So I don't have any magic answers for you. I thought it was very important that I notified you guys immediately of this. This, in my tenure, has been the most significant budget impact that I've ever seen.
Go ahead, Mr.
Kevin, one of the things that you can do to help this board, we know all our capital projects, all of them is grant projects, either through one agency or another. When those grants were awarded, it was at the cost at that time.
Correct.
Yes.
So can you take the projects that we have now to give us some idea of what we are talking about? You say things going up 33%. Can you take those jobs that we got grants for and say, this is what I think it's gonna cost you today?
Yes, sir. I could do, right now I could take.
And then we know what hill we trying to climb.
Well, he just said.
You were to ask.
You said we had $20 million.
On a $3.5 million project that we got a grant money for now, he take those projects and say, this is gonna cost you now.
A little over $1 million more.
Above the original grant money.
He's saying he can tell us right now.
No,
We
but I
calculate-
want to see the numbers.
We
I want to see
calculated
each
that this
project.
morning.
What's that gonna be? What's that 43% gonna be? Or what that 33% gonna be? And then we know in dollars, this is what the dollars is.
The heck with percentages, I wanna know what the hard line is, what the dollars are, or what we got to come up with.
Can you get project by project?
Yeah, all the projects, we got all this money already, been, funded to the county, and then we got to spend. If it gonna cost us extra to do these projects now, I need to know what it's gonna cost.
So how many grant funded projects do we have?
I don't have the exact number in totality, but it is roughly $20 million worth.
Okay,
You can do the math. I'll be happy to provide what you're asking, Mr. Williams. If you were asking me today, it's $6 million.
yeah, it's $6 to $7 million, no matter how you.
Now, I can break it down by project, no problem, but that is the math. It's roughly a 33% increase today. I think if you ask me 2 weeks from now, it might be different than that.
Might be 8.
Yes, sir. Okay, so it's something that we have to figure out. I did not want to proceed going wide open and at some point come up here and say, oh, by the way, Parnell Hills is a $3.5 million contract, grant funded. And by the way, Commissioner, we need $1 million. That wouldn't be smart on my part. I've got all these county contracts out there where I've got Mayo Road, Commissioner Ford at Swanny River Water Management District right now for final permit approval. I have a double run in that same phase. I'm preparing English. I'm right on the hills with English. Those are county funded projects. I want to get this board on the same page. If we've got a deficit out there, if y'all want me to continue on with the county funded side of things, that man and I down there have to get real creative on the financial side.
And here's where we're caught between a rock and a hard place. We've gone out and we've Cowcatcher Road, for example, just for conversation. We've gone in, Toby's gone out in that district and say, well, I got this road to be scheduled, I got money to do it with, we're doing the engineering and all to be ready to get the permit. All they know is you promised me you're gonna do this road. They could give a heck about how much more it's gonna cost you. And then when you don't pay it, they're gonna call you a damn liar.
Mr.
We know
Williams?
that, don't we?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Williams, if we don't do English Road, I'm leaving town. Those people out there, they don't
Well,
believe it.
that's been 8 years coming.
Sir,
8 years,
15.
15, well,
Yes, sir.
50, yeah.
We surveyed 3 times.
Yep.
We're this close this time.
yeah, and had we done it way back then, it'd
Sure.
have been, what, a third of what it is now?
Yeah.
Even maybe more than that now.
Yeah.
Okay?
People in Columbia County, they don't say much about this or that or that or that, but when it comes to their roads, if you expect to stay in office, you're gonna be able to take care of them dirt roads and them paved road cracking up.
Yes, sir.
And when we promise them we're gonna do it and don't have the money because the price went up, they don't look at it like that.
I've never
You
had,
promised me.
I've never
You
had
pay that
one
road for me.
constituent ask me about the mega industrial park.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah.
I know that it is a great thing and they'll realize it later, you know, what a great thing it is, but I've never had anybody ask me about it. You know, roads are the number one thing.
That will provide you funding to do those.
That's right. That's, the mega industrial park is a step towards having enough money to
Yep.
do all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Kraus?
Kind of bad news you got for us.
Mr. Kraus, are you going, is the addition for the boat ramp on yours?
You already handled that, sir.
Yes.
We already have.
Mr. Kirby got some.
So basically, the addition of the boat ramp, do you have we all do that already?
Yeah, we got that.
I didn't hear him.
You already approved it. So we-
Okay, well, it was on the
appreciate it.
list for down here. I don't know why. No,
We
not
do
a hard
appreciate
time. I can see it fine, old man.
We're not gonna let Kevin talk anymore.
Yeah, he's a downer. Golly, Kevin, go home.
It only gets better from there.
Go find $10 million.
The first thing we'd like to bring up is the resolution for the Supervisor of Elections to approve the precinct lines.
Well, we need a motion.
What resolution? That's what
What is
number
that
is it?
resolution?
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Passed
to,
out when she spoke.
Okay, I'll make
So
a
I'm-
motion. We approve resolution number 2022 R-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, so the other
Mr.
thing-
Chair, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
proceed, did you say 23, Commissioner Ford?
20, he said 25.
Yeah, it's
No,
20. If you could just
2022
redo the
or
motion to 20. It's 2022-23.
Oh, is it? I got the wrong one?
Yes, sir.
I was
It's
looking
on-
at the wrong
I think
one, too.
Okay,
25
I'm sorry, I
was the
revised
vote.
my motion to 2022 R-23.
Thank you.
Likewise, with second.
We have a motion and a second with a revised motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
So the next thing on the agenda is RFQ 2022U, Planning and Engineering Review Services. As you know, development is going out at a tremendous rate right now. We also picked up the building and permitting for the city. And so our building and zoning department is like busting at the seams. Also, Brandon is trying to help us with additional duties. So what we would like to do is we would like to get a firm under a continuing contract to help us with site plan review, stormwater review, and building and zoning services. Based on the RFQ, we had 4 firms. You can see the ranking in front of you. We would like you to allow us to make a negotiation with both Pittman Engineering LLC and EDA Consulting, Inc. For continuing services contract for planning and zoning. So that when they say a hotel comes in and they have a large site plan, and quite frankly, they're tied up, they can contract out that service to come in and help them with the site plan review, with the stormwater calculations, just to keep the process going.
I make a motion, we approve ranking and authorize to begin negotiation with 2 top firms.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The next one is, again, this should be pretty straightforward, 2022-2023 contract for services with Swanny Valley Transit. Obviously, you do this every year. This is for the year beginning October 1st, 2022, and it's paid in 4 quarterly payments, and it's the same amount as the current year.
Have a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve contract for services 2022, 2023 with Swanny Valley
Second.
Transit.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes.
So the next item is we had a utility advisory committee of the town of Fort White / Columbia County Joint Committee on May 4th. And we talked about a lot of fun things, but one of the things that they talked about is the town of Fort White has a couple of ARPA funds projects that total, we believe, $300,000. They would like to donate that money, or not donate, but commit that money to the water projects in Fort White, both the connection between Ellisville and Fort White and just the operations of the water system itself. In addition to that, the committee talked about the possibility of the county helping the town of Fort White fund equipment, a dump truck, something to dig, so that we have some equipment down there to maintain the town's utility system, the lines in the ground. The town would possibly use it for other things as well. But right now, we operate 2 utilities on the south end of the county, and we have 0 pieces of equipment. So if the line breaks, we have to call Kevin and say, Kevin, hey, you got something we can give us that we can haul down to Fort White so we can fix it? And the town's equipment is basically not in a condition that it would work.
So what we're looking at doing is maybe buying them a little small single axle dump truck, or actually it'd be for the utility. But Town of Fort White would have access to it also. It'd be
Okay, but
positioned down in Fort White.
they'll own it. It'll be theirs.
We would
No,
like
the
the town,
utility would own it.
Utility could.
we
No,
would
the
like,
utility would own it.
all right.
Yeah, the
It would be
utility
Fort
would own it.
White would own it.
No, the
Utility.
Utility.
The
Fort
committee,
White, Columbia County utility would own it.
okay.
It'd be
Right
joint
now,
owned
the
by-
committee is in the process of developing the rules, the regulations, and ultimately becoming a thing, a utility authority, hopefully, in the long run. In the short run, the town would own it. If a utility authority is created, then the authority would own it. That way, all the
Yeah, that's what I
maintenance
was
costs,
saying.
repairs
Yeah, but
costs,
when the resolution is
operation costs will
done,
be borne by the
when
town of
Joe,
Fort White
when
rather than Columbia County.
it's done, it'll be a utility for the water and sewer, correct, Joe?
Yes, sir.
And that equipment will be part of that utility.
For the board's information, had a meeting earlier today with Mr. Guntek. We're trying to decide if the best approach is going to be an interlocal between the town and the county, or in fact, a local bill through the legislature that could help create the authority. So we've still got some balls in the air, but the idea there would be that entity would own this piece of equipment.
So in the meantime, before we can enact that, the town of Fort White would own it, they would maintain it, they would gas it. we would be able to use it as we needed to maintain the utilities.
Mr. Kirby, you have some input on this?
Yes, sir. I want to remind this board, I think it was all these guys on this board, when we entered the agreement with the school board about donation of some equipment, that becomes so problematic with inventory, which we do on an annual basis, maintenance, et cetera. I actually come in front of this board and requested us to donate that to the school board. So when Mr. Kraus and I first started discussing this, I did not feel comfortable if nobody checks the oil, changes the oil, so forth and so on. I just know how this game works.
That was my concern. Why don't we just wipe our hands of it and let them have it and them do all the maintenance, like we're talking about going down there to do all that.
But I think the difference between this is once the committee, the utility, the consolidation between the agreement between the city of Fort
Okay.
White and the town of Fort White and the Board of County Committee, we got a utility committee. All those assets go into.
Okay, so we're gonna have,
utility committee.
so Kevin will be servicing it down in Fort White. That's what I'm
I think what Commissioner
logistics
Williams
of
is
that,
saying, I think what Commissioner Williams is saying is once it becomes an authority, whether it's through a legislative act or whether
It
it's through a local
becomes,
bill,
a joint
it
authority.
becomes the property of the authority,
Yeah.
neither the town nor the county.
Yeah.
What Kevin is saying is until that time occurs,
Yeah,
since it's down in Fort White, it's not in our shop, we don't have our ability to have our hands on it every single day.
that's what I'm
It's
saying.
best for the town of Fort White to own it and maintain it with the knowledge that they will.
Just
give
give
to the
it, what I'm saying is give it to them, then they can give it to the authority.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know what's gonna happen with that truck down there for the next however long, you
Yeah,
know?
and I guess what I was just saying is eventually it will be
Right,
long.
But I'm just saying, in the interim, which could be a long time, let's go ahead and let them take care of it. And because then it's really, why wouldn't he just haul something down there if he's got to go there and service it? You know what I mean? So I just think it'd be logistically harder.
Mr. Chairman, I approve the recommendation with the town of Fort White and for the water system authorization of the purchase of equipment to be owned by the town of Fort White until the authorization of the combined utility between the city of Fort White and the town of Fort White and Columbia County. So that take care of your concerns there.
I think it will. Is that
Yes, sir.
second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like a motion, if possible, to approve any donation from the town of Fort White for the water system of
So
ARPA
moved.
money.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
David, while you're on Fort White, you might handle their ship resolution.
Right. Before that, I just want to remind everybody, since it is a joint utility advisory committee, these also have to be adopted by the town of Fort White before they become effective. So,
David, while we're talking about that too, you might want to just let everybody know that it was announced that they're going to approve another, from Swanny Water Management, we're going to have another $1.5 million go toward the sewer in Fort White also. So, right now we're around $7 million for sewer, not to mention the money we have for water. So I appreciate Swanny Water Management,
absolutely.
everybody involved is getting us that money. So
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. So you have a resolution on your table, Resolution 2022 R24. Town of Fort White gave it to us on Tuesday. Basically, they want to do a CDBG grant, and they would like to use some of the SHIP money for the match. And this is a resolution saying that should they be awarded the CDBG money, we would be supportive of the SHIP money match.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2022 R-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
So back when we decided to hook the FDOT rest area on I-75 to our water system, the board felt that what we should charge them is for their water usage and that the county would pay for the connection fees and the tap fees. So what was done in the BA at the time was actually the amount just for the connection fees. It did not include the tap fees. When we were going over our budgets with Mr. Williams, Chad, our engineer, he was concerned about, well, where does the capacity fees get paid for? So this budget amendment, we want to be completely crystal clear. This budget amendment is part of that. We would transfer the $35,000 from reserves for future enhancements out of the Economic Development Fund into the utility so that the utility is not waiving fees because we don't waive fees in the utility.
So you need a motion for this, David?
I move for the recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes.
All right, the next couple items I'm going to work on with Mr. Kirby as well. Animal control services, based on, you can come on up, Kevin. Based on what we discussed the other day, if you remember, we were talking about if the sheriff's department takes it over, we would need a new shelter. New shelter would cost roughly $750,000. Mr. Kirby and I have gone out and sharpened our pencils, and he has a new projection of that number.
Okay, as David indicated, this sticker value shot of the proposed building that was put together collectively by us and the sheriff, it was $750,000. So I was requested, let's go to brainstorm and see what we can do. So we did just that. So the sheriff indicated he would need roughly $139,000 to start up cost. His annual operating expense after that was $482,000, which is like and similar to what we're doing today. The challenge was the $750,000 for somewhere to put it. So everybody tossed it around. I don't really remember who initially brought it up, but we figured out we can build a dog kennel satisfactory for their needs and move a building from point A to point B to satisfy their needs. So you're roughly at $200,000 versus the $750,000.
This facility would be located between the Public Works facility and the jail.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I still don't like the proposal. Just be straight up. I heard from staff a second proposal that would save us money and keep it in the Board of County Commission control as far as cost goes.
So the proposal that the commissioner is talking about would be if the county hired the animal control people as like code enforcement officers, but they would be animal control officers. We could then use the sheltering with the Humane Society, which they said they would be amenable to for basic, the amount that they were talking about, 300, 250,000. Right, I mean, it really boils down to how you want to approach animal control, but you do have those two options. We provide the animal control, they provide our facilities, or the sheriff provides the animal control and facilities.
So if we provide animal control, I mean, I have no problem with that. But my thing is, how would they get the calls? How would we?
Through 911, just like.
So we would go through 911 straight to the animal. If we run the animal control too, we'd go through 911.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could do that.
I guess
Bill
that,
may not like it, but we could do that.
that's an important issue to me, that any calls for animal services, like a bad animal goes through 911. I want the caller to be able to talk to somebody when they make that call.
Yeah, and here is the other point. Even once that call goes through, there will be a animal control worker on call, just like we have now with all the other departments we have in the county. There's a person on call, so that will not be where you don't get nobody until Monday morning come if something happened on Saturday, or Saturday night, or Sunday morning.
And how would it work with the animal shelter for them to use them for the housing the animals when they bring them in? Is
They
that
had
something
indicated
that we
they would
want
be
to?
interested to provide our shelter for us. We've not worked out the details because we did not know if that was a direction the board would want to go or not. That's something we can certainly work out the details. I don't know, is anybody here ready to talk about that?
is my take on it. If we let the sheriff run the animal control, he's already said, I'm not doing humane. That's me. All I'm doing is picking them up. I'm by law, I can hold them for 3 days at a minimum of whatever he decides for a maximum. And I just cannot see truckloads of dogs and cats, or animals going to the landfill. I just cannot see that. We are beyond putting all these animals to sleep. So here is where Humane come in. We have a humane society that have the capability of housing dogs that our officers would pick up. One way or the other, we got to partner with who runs the animal shelter with the Humane Society, unless we gonna have 3 days, kill them, give them a shot, take the landfill. If that's what we're gonna do, then we can do it. But I cannot see Columbia County taking that process and not have a good humane society. So there'll be some interaction between us and the Humane Society. They got everything they need out there to do it. The only difference would be we own and pay for the officers. We still control. But once we get out of it, we don't control the cost of it anymore. It's like everybody else's budget is gonna go up. I think we put a cap on how it goes up, because we know I need a $300,000 increase. We don't give it to them, what happened to it? Well, it's your animal shelter. I'm looking up the road when a Mark Honey's not here. Maybe some other new church coming there. I don't want no part of this. We starting all over again. When we got a system now that we can modify and fix, and it does not involve another Constitution officer. I'm through.
Hello, board. So I did want to present you with something that is an option for you. I'll give an example. Halifax Humane Society, which is located in Daytona Beach, Florida, is a very similar situation to what you guys are referring to now. Whether you choose to have your animal control officers be through the sheriff's office or be employees that the board hires, similar to code enforcement. Halifax Humane Society contracts with different municipalities, including Daytona Beach, DeBary, Daytona, Holly Hill, unincorporated Volusia County, and 5 others. They are the entire housing facility for dogs for animal control. It works very similar to the situation that we have now, where when dogs come in, they belong to animal control for a certain period of time, and then they transfer ownership to the Humane Society, which is the contract that you have now. It works very much the same. Your animal control personnel in Halifax, they bring those to the Humane Society. So the Humane Society is the housing building, but animal control is done through a separate entity. Whether you choose for that to be the sheriff or your private person, that is something that is completely capable. We are already set up to do that. It would just be a separate contract, a different contract from what you have now.
So as you remember from when we had the workshop, the sheriff, if he gets into the business, would like his own shelter. So those are your two options. One of the issues you also were debating was the appearance of the person when they show up at the door, if they're in a sheriff's uniform or if they're in some other uniform.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you if this is one of the reasons, the sheriff, we're going to use some inmates. We're not going to haul inmates over to the, you know what I'm saying? Aren't we going to use some inmates for helping with the shelter? Or is
The
that
sheriff absolutely would
right?
use inmates to
So
the
I
shelter
think
panel.
they're 100 yards away, 200 yards away. I don't know that, you know, I'm just talking about logistics, you know, about getting inmates to go to the,
Well, no, I mean, if we contract with the Humane Society,
it'll be.
it would be their volunteers.
We'll be paying
It
their
would be strictly
volunteers and their
volunteers,
employees. Yeah.
Their staff, it would not be the sheriff's inmates.
Right. But we'll be
Unless
paying
they
their,
worked out a deal with
we'll
the
be
sheriff.
paying people instead of having the inmates do it. We'll have, okay.
do we know what that cost from the Humane Society is going to be to house those?
I do not know the number. We would have to get with Mr. Rossi and formulate a number for you if that is the direction you wanted to take. I would postulate to the board that if in the future you did want to go the avenue of building your own building, this would give you a longer transitional period where you still control animal control and the way it is run. And if you wanted to give it to the sheriff in the future, I mean, that's up to you guys. I'm trying to answer the question that you asked me. I'm not here to debate what you're gonna do whatsoever.
So now Mr. Rossi cannot speak for the board, but in talking with Mr. Rossi, he estimated it to be $350,000.
For the animal services portion, which would be the housing of the animals from start to finish, which is what, not including the salaries for the animal control officers, the gas to go pick them up. So the way it would work is the animal control officers would have to drop them off at our facility for housing, and we would still utilize the kennels that we have, the protocols that we have in accordance with the new contract for animal control.
Okay, so that's you not picking any animals up anymore.
That
That's
would be,
us picking them up.
yes, sir. So you guys would have the vehicle
Okay,
maintenance.
so what was
and-
our, because I remember when we had this discussion with Mr. Rossi, he went from $150,000 for the Humane Society to 300 if we did all the animal catching. In other words, the sheriff did his job. Was that right? And that was very confusing to me that if we were going to do all the animal control, that we were going to have to give the Humane Society double what we gave them before for Humane Society money. I'm a little confused about that.
Yeah, and it could have been that he didn't understand the process.
Well-
The best thing is let staff put together, get with them and put together a proposal to bring back this board. Then we got something tangible to look at then,
So you can
and not what we
estimate,
think.
if the county gets into the animal control business as code enforcement officers, the staffing costs that the sheriff presented would be the same that the county would have, with the exception of maybe a supervisor. So we would not necessarily need a
But we wouldn't
sergeant,
have
but we would
sheriff's
still-
deputies on call 24 hours a day. You know, sheriff control, animal control officers going out there in uniforms, and that's, you know, we're all talking about humane and all that, but we know that we have incidences where people get bit, that there's one on Facebook right now, but somebody brought a dog, you know, and that people are getting hammering it. So I just want to do the best. I'm as worried about human safety as I am about dog safety.
The sheriff did not say he would have one sworn officer. The other officers that he had would not have guns and
He
badges.
said the guy
Would
that
not
was
have
running,
Guns and badges.
but he said the guy that was the overseer officer would be a sworn officer. I think he said he'd have three people under him. We can verify
What the
that.
sheriff's
But-
number was, he would have one sergeant over the unit.
Who was
He would have 4 control officers who would get paid at least $15 an hour plus benefits. And he would have an administrative.
and if I remember
person
correctly,
to pay for it.
it's the
Kevin's
same
got
amount of
the number
money.
here.
We were gonna have 4 officers, they have 2. They were gonna do 2 with the new contract. So, you know, I'm just trying to get apples and apples and oranges and oranges. I
Well-
wanna make sure.
So the personnel cost for the sheriff was $482,000.
Right, and you have 4 officers, and I believe they presented that they would have 2 officers,
4 officers.
right?
Supervisor and a clerical position, 6 positions.
Two things I know, Mr. Chairman. It's got to be fixed, all right? And the animal control portion of this needs to be either working for us or working for one of our constitutional officers. It needs to be under the purview of this county commission's budget or our budget through what we give him. So that's what I know. That needs to be separated out. And when I first envisioned, you know, maybe keeping the working together, we already help them fund that building. It's a building that's already there. You know, I thought maybe the sheriff would work with them and he would, you know, use their facility. I understand why he wants his own facility if we go that route. I'm willing to look at both options, but I just want the thing fixed. I don't want people contacting me through social media with horror stories because they can't get things taken care of. I just want it fixed once and for all. Commissioner Williams, you do make a good point. You know, we don't change sheriffs very often here because we elect good ones and they stay a long time. But it does happen, and we've seen it happen with 911 and other things where, you know, they want it, this sheriff wants it, and somebody else comes in, and it winds up going to the county, which is, you know, those things happen, but the thing needs to be fixed. I'm willing to look at both options. And both options are essentially the same.
So in all fairness to the sheriff, what he told us, Kevin can verify this, his concern about using their service if he was doing animal control was in other places where that occurred, it proved to be problematic.
That's right.
And he did not want to start off in a problematic situation.
And remember, we've done this. I've seen y'all do it over the years. Everybody said we're gonna do everything right and we're gonna do better and we're gonna do better. And I don't know how many years it's been since it all started, but it never gets better. We always are we're here again. So in my experience with the commission, talking to Ron and talking to everybody, there's stuff like this that gets passed and passed and passed until it becomes, you gotta do something. And I'm all for humane treatment of animals, but I'm also for humane treatment of people that get bit by dogs. So it's a catch-22. Some people don't like it, some are gonna like it. People that got bit by dogs, and a kid or a family that their kid, they're gonna like it because they're gonna have a deputy there. And I know that they won't be sworn. They won't be sworn with a AR-15, but they will be deputies, and there'll be 4 of them, 2 on call all the time, 2 on other time. So it presents a better, I mean, there's what? 4, how many counties do use the sheriff in this state?
Many. I can't say
Almost
much.
all of
A
them,
bunch.
almost all of them. So, you know, there's a reason for that, you know, because of the logistics and the way it works out. So that's just my opinion. I'm willing to look at anything, but we can't go back to what we had. We gotta fix it.
And they're both,
We didn't have a problem with the animal shelter when Margaret Smith was there. It was just the opposite. People say she was too strict and she was doing her job too good.
Yeah.
We didn't ever have a problem about not answering the call.
Yeah.
About no that Margaret Smith ran a top-notch job. She did not take nothing from nobody.
Right.
She done her job for the statute.
And I think that's,
And then when Margaret left, when you hire bad apples, I guess that's it. Well, yeah, when you hire bad apples to replace a good apple, and they don't run the same way, things start going south. And the animal shelter went south. We admit that. But I can see this animal control service. We won't be sitting here, maybe, but his son boy gonna say this animal control, the way we got it set up now, have gotten so far out of hand because look what it's costing us.
yeah, but right now it's the same, it would be the same cost for the sheriff as
Well,
it is.
I'm looking ahead. You looking at now.
Well, I'm looking ahead
I'm
too,
looking at
because,
10 years down the
okay,
line,
I know that,
where $300,000 has gone to $1 million. Now do the figures yourself. You
I
can do the
did,
figures,
I
get with Dick Powell
I did.
and say, take a $500,000 budget and prorate it out over 10 years using the formula you used to do that for.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was going to 600,000 next year if we used animal control, wasn't it? Or
No.
the numbers went up. I know that when we,
Well,
450, it was 450 this year, then it was going to be 5 something and 6. So yes, you're going to spend more money. You're going to spend more money either way, because from what I could tell, I don't have the budget numbers. I don't know if there's anybody here, but I know that it was $600,000 in 2 years.
2 years' time.
2 years' time, it was going to be more than $600,000. So you're correct. That's $200,000 more in 2 years if we leave it like it is with half the officers. You know what I'm saying? So you're right. It will go up in funding because the animal shelter wanted more funding. I don't know if the sheriff will go up that quickly. I hope not.
I'm just
But I
talking
don't
about
know.
take the percentage of everything else go up in this county by department, by constitution
Well,
office.
that's 25% with the animal shelter because they went from 450 to 600, I think, in 2 years. I need to check that and make sure, but I know it was around $600,000.
That was only Robin's projection. That was
Oh,
not the current one
okay.
that was
Well,
done.
that's what they told us, and that's
yeah,
probably
they
part of
rein
the
that
issue
back.
we're having. We don't know.
We can beat this dog to death
Yeah,
tonight,
yeah.
but we're not gonna get.
So I
anything
guess
done until we get
we need a
some
proposal.
numbers that we can look at.
We know the 2 things we want to do. We need a proposal for one or the other, you know, for what y'all want to do as partners with the sheriff. You know,
So where
not,
we left it the last time we met was this would come back as a budget item and be adopted in the budget. And we have an agreement with the animal shelter to operate through October. We brought this back because instead of a $750,000 construction bill, it's now $200,000 construction bill, which is something that Kevin and I felt comfortable could be absorbed in the current budget. We're not saying you need to make a decision tonight. We just wanted to bring it back to your attention with the updated information.
Yeah, you're a couple months away from more budget hearings. There's no reason in beating this to death tonight. You've got two proposals that are going to be essentially the same, other than who essentially is oversees it, and a $200,000 startup cost. So it's worth hearing both proposals, and we can decide in those budget hearings.
I would say you've got three proposals: the sheriff and Humane Society, the sheriff only, or animal control personnel through the county, such as similar to code enforcement.
Right.
And then you guys can choose from there, whatever your direction is. You do have a contract with us at the end of September. The Humane Society maintains that it will try to have a good working relationship with either the Board of County Commissioners, should they choose to go that route, or the sheriff.
but I think the sheriff, the first option you had, Sheriff Humane Society, is not going to happen. So we really have two options. So just for informational purposes. Yeah, so we have two options, the sheriff or the county taking over animal control and then working with the Humane Society however we can. That's what it sounds like. Would y'all agree that kind of what it sounds like? But we need the Humane Society involved.
For clarification, so you're saying that if the sheriff takes it over, you don't want involvement with the animal services?
No. They were talking about taking the sheriff and putting him at your office. That
Okay.
wasn't an option,
All
I
right,
think.
perfect. That's perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
Like I said, just let us get any direction that you have for any requirements for a budget or contract amendments. Just let us know, and we'd be happy to get those together for you.
If I remember what the sheriff said, he would turn the animals over to the animal shelter after he held them for so many days.
That was
So
his-
basically, when the sheriff made his proposal, when we had our workshop, the sheriff would hold them for whatever the period of time was we deemed necessary. At that point, then, the Humane Society could pick up the animals that they felt they could adopt out. They certainly have never said that they would take every animal. So they don't, they don't take every animal. And obviously, there's other organizations out there that could also take animals to avoid euthanasia.
But
There are always going to be some animals that are not in a condition that they're adoptable and will have to be euthanized.
But even the animal
Even
shelter
currently,
said if it's an aggressive dog, they don't adopt it
Yeah,
out.
but even in that scenario, if you're gonna get the Humane Society involved, it's right that we do something to help the Humane
Oh, yeah,
Society.
Well,
we're
We
still going to
always
give them
agreed to
money.
do that.
We're still going to give them a budget for that.
Yeah, but I don't think, well, here, until we get some solid numbers from both entities on the revived deal that Kevin and David have put together, and a revised one from the Humane Society, then we can make a reasonable decision then.
So I guess.
But now you're talking about it and saying,
So
it might be this, it might be that, you can't do it.
So at the workshop, the
Yeah.
board indicated that if they went with the sheriff, they would still give animal services money to the Lake City Humane Society. And that was reflected in the contract that Joel drafted and we worked on. It sets aside money for animal services, separate from money for animal control. So if the sheriff does it, you're still going to have
You're still going to give
animal
money to the Humane
services that you
Society.
have to deal
Yes.
with. That's
I-
We're not just
I
going to
never
cut the Humane
criticized-
Society off.
I never criticize staff ever. I have never criticized staff. But this is one that I think they did not need to come here tonight until we had good numbers from both sides, not just what this is worked back down to, because I don't have anything to compare what the Humane Society would be able to do to take care of dogs if we pick them up by owning the employee, or if the sheriff does that.
And I agree, that's a valid request. Let them bring something back with us running it sort of like code enforcement and working with the animal shelter.
So we'll
Just
prepare-
That way we can
We'll prepare
see
two
what the
budgets.
difference is, what, if one's better than the other.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you want to say something? Okay.
Anyway, we will prepare two budgets.
Oh, you
Yeah.
don't think all this conversation should be taking place right now?
I'm Roy Armstrong. I'm the adoption counselor at the Humane Society. I'm the humane guy in the Humane Society, okay? And I appreciate you listening to me. I'm in the Rockies District, by the way. One question is, I hear you brought this figure, this building down to $200,000. You're going to move a building because you meet all the requirements. What requirements have you met for the? What I don't see is what's that building going to look like? How many kennels are in there? How big are the kennels?
No kennels.
Remember, I'm thinking the humane side, okay? Couple of questions, okay? For those 3 days that the sheriff says he's going to hold those, is he going to do the proper thing humanely? Are they going to be vaccinated? Are they going to be looked at? Where in the budget is there an item line for medications for these animals? Because the humane way to do stuff, an animal comes in, they get inoculated. Otherwise, you're going to have diseases all through this brand new building, okay? Is that all in this budget? Okay?
Yep.
Is that
It-
broke
we-
down? Is there any way we can?
We
see those resources?
Mr. Kirby can answer these questions because he did an extensive research on this. He knows exactly what you're talking about and exactly what is
Well,
required.
and again, I'm only
Yeah,
saying that
yeah,
'cause I'm-
yeah. We're not, like I said, we're not just going off and put them in a concrete building and we're not doing that. We're doing it right, you know.
Well, that's great.
I know.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to start by saying, Commissioner Williams, staff was simply requested to put this up here. Whatever this board decides, staff is tickled to death, okay? I have zero ownership in this. I was doing what I was asked to do. So what did we do to answer this gentleman's question? I have a personal friend of mine that owns a lot of dogs, very quality dogs, roughly 40 of them. He recently constructed a dog kennel a couple of years ago, 6 by 10, I think. Each kennel was 6 foot by 10 foot with gradient slopes, septic tanks, capture the waste, et cetera. It was basically a red iron building, halfly sheeted, keep wind protected, et cetera, fans, very state of the art. I asked him, what did that cost? He told me. We went and upped the values based on today's market to imitate that exact kennel. Mr. Kraus and I went out there, the sheriff's department's employees went out there. They took a look at it and said, wow, this works. We took that, and it also has, I do not recall the dimensions, but it has a heated and cooled office as part of that kennel. It's quite considerable in size. What would you say? Right, 40 by 15 probably? I think it was 42 by 15, that office was, 45 by 20. That was all inclusive. And then on top of that, we have a building which Katina, the major at the sheriff's department, she did research at other locations. The building heated, cooled, partition walls. So yes, sir, all of that was considered. But we did not shoot off the hip. But once again, for everybody's information, I was asked by a couple of commissioners, could that work? It can. Now, Mr. Williams, if you want the county to run it, I've never argued with you or anybody else. That's where we're at.
How many kennels will that cost?
32. Yes, sir.
You know, as of Monday, last Monday, we brought in 38 animals, dogs, and it was on that post that you're referring to. Some cats too.
Yes, sir.
In other words, there's a total of 91 animals in just a little over a week.
Yes, sir.
Is he gonna give them a hold down? And he's gonna have a cat from his.
Yes, sir. The cat was included. I went on information based on giving me that 32 would be sufficient. I do not know.
I'm only pointing out because understand
I get it.
what we're up against.
I understand.
I know you.
We're up against it too.
I know there's people who contacted you with complaints and all that, and how we're not doing things. I implore anybody to come and live up there for 2 days and see what we do. And to receive what we receive on social
Understand.
media is uncalled for.
I
The other
understand.
question I got for you, Chair, you keep talking about animals being bit or people being bit. That's what your concern is and all that. Do you know how many of the calls that come in are actually bite calls compared to how many are just stray
Well,
animals? We gotta go.
I've
get
had
them?
about 6 calls in the last 3 months about dogs. Woman won't walk out of her house because the dog's in her front, growling at her back door. That's a bite call to me.
Oh,
That,
absolutely.
that's a person trapped in their home by a dog. and nobody comes. And I'm not being mean. There's probably something y'all happened that wasn't your fault. But when I get a lady that calls me that to 70 years old, she can't even take her grandkids out to the boat, it's very concerning to me.
I do,
You know,
and I'm not arguing.
And I'm not
What I want-
saying y'all do a bad job. I'm just saying that I think maybe if deputies, if we had somebody on call 24 hours a day, two people, 911, not a phone that somebody has,
Yeah.
that sometimes doesn't get answered, because I mean, I know y'all say,
Understand.
you know what I mean?
And you see what it's gonna cost you to
I
have.
want it to be sure. I want to be sure when somebody's got a dog trapping them in their home that somebody's coming. You know what I mean?
And I'm not discounting it. What
Yeah.
I'm trying to point out is the number of animals that are coming in here, okay? Because I could go on why we have this problem, okay? But bite calls are far, far less than the number of animals we gotta go out and get
I
strays.
understand.
You know, hey, I got this dog in my yard.
I
Get somebody
understand.
out here and pick it up. And we gotta bring them in. Like I said, 91
I
from
understand.
Monday of last
Yeah.
week, okay?
Yeah, I
I mean,
appreciate it. I
there's
know,
a high
I know it's an overcrowding problem always for you, and it probably will be for us.
It will be.
Yep,
It will
I
be,
guarantee you.
okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So y'all want, staff's gonna look into this and see what the difference is between county running it and the sheriff running it and the other, and making sure the Humane Society has the money they need.
We will get you an updated number for that.
Okay. Yeah, because-
Both of those
Yeah,
areas.
it's all been so confusing. I appreciate it very much. Go ahead, David.
The next item, unless you want to keep going. We wanted to update the board on the errors and omissions claim, insurance claim. As you remember, we had a situation where a gentleman purchased a piece of property based on what he read on the property appraiser's website and information he got from the property appraiser. He believed it to be commercial. When he went to sell it, he found out it was residential. And so he filed a complaint that we made an error. We did give that claim to our insurance adjuster. That insurance adjuster last week told me he has selected an attorney, and that the attorney has or will order 2 appraisals, one at the commercial value and one at the residential value. And the county has a $10,000 deductible on its policy.
I want to say something about this. Sometimes people make mistakes. The county made a mistake. No doubt about it. 4 months later, with our insurance company, we're all of a sudden ordering appraisals. And I mean, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the folks that own the property, because they're not our adversaries. They are someone we really made a mistake with, and it's really our responsibility to try to make them whole in every way we can. And we're doing that to a point. Back when this happened, Mr. Kirby, I remember it like it was yesterday, and I think you too said, you know what, this is a deal where it just happened, and we thought it was commercial. They thought it was commercial. They were offered money for it. Find out it's not commercial. The deal goes through, falls through. Government, and I know everybody in this crowd knows, when you call government, a lot of times you get put off, you know, and you go, and they just finally give up because you can't get anything done. In my opinion, with the way this is being handled, not from the county, but in the aspects of the insurance company, the lawyers not being able to get a touch, you know what I mean? It just bothers me that I would be as frustrated as the people that own this property if it were me, just as frustrated. And like I said, we're not suing them and we're not mad at them. They are our constituents who pay taxes for us to do our job. And they are kind of like victims of a mistake. And was it somebody with this board? No, not at all. It was something that happened with somebody else, who knows? And we're always correcting stuff that happened with previous boards from years and years ago. So I just want to say, if I were in their position, I would not be happy. I'd be frustrated. And I want to tell them I'm sorry about it, because I understand where they're at. And I know that we're going to have it taken care of with the insurance company. I hope they do it a little quicker than they've been doing it.
Well, I concur, but we as stewards of the taxpayers' dollars pay for insurance so that the taxpayers' dollars won't have to cover this, and the insurance company will. That's why we buy insurance on behalf of the taxpayers for this. And I know when you get attorneys and insurance carriers involved, it's a mess. And I'm with you that we need to do everything we can to make sure these people are made whole. But that's the reason we have insurance.
I know, but you got to remember, the insurance company, I believe, said we didn't do anything wrong at one time. And then all of a sudden, 4 months later, we're getting an appraisal order. In other words, it's a time-sensitive situation. Land ain't going up, but I know we're going to make them whole. I know that. But I hope that we can be a little more speedy with it next time, help them, try to get them, because I can understand where 4 months later, nobody's got any words to say except we're going to order an appraisal. To me, I think probably an appraisal should have been ordered before 4 months. That's just my opinion.
Give us a timeline. I'm sorry, Toby, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, no offense to counselors sitting down there at the end, but I don't think attorneys and speed are in the same sentence ever, so.
They didn't hire an attorney until a week ago.
Give us a timeline,
That's a
David. Tell us how we got to this point when we had the discussion back in December. Why are we at this point? Is the adjuster
We turned it
here?
over to, this is our agent.
Okay.
We turned it over to the adjuster, and at that point, we let it go. The insurance company takes over.
I understand. Mhm.
Let me remind you what you have. You don't have an insurance company. You have an insurance trust.
Right.
And you are owners of that trust. So it's your money, it's your trust. So it's not a separate entity. The claim began back in December. Now, this is a complicated claim. It's real property. Okay, so it involves fault and it involves appraisals. When a claim comes in, we have to do two things, whether it's such a small claim like a pothole and involves tires, or it's a large claim and involves a building or real property. We've got to first do an investigation and find out, is there fault on your part? You don't want to pay a claim where you're not at fault. Okay, so we got to figure out fault. There was no question in this case from a anecdotal standpoint where the fault was, but we have to show it. Okay, and so showing fault involves document exchanges back and forth, and that's between the claimant and the claims adjuster. That's where there was a slow area. After you determine fault and the trust says, okay, we're going to pay for this, then you got to determine out what the damages are. That's the second phase of it. And so that's where you're at right now. So the time, it's not unusual when you get it, claims adjusters and attorneys involved. It sounds 4 to 5 months sounds like a lot, but this is not a smaller claim. The small ones we handle locally. Sometimes, we've had road graders back over hoods of cars. We handle that really quick locally. But when it goes to Orlando, it slows down. I think you're right, Commissioner Hollingsworth. I think we're close on this one, but it's not going to be instant. Attorneys don't work fast. Appraisers don't work even slower than that.
And Mr. Chair, I'm recused off this particular case, but in general, you have two dynamics that were at work here. One was Mr. Kirby and Mr. Kraus brought you an early settlement proposal from the folks who have suffered from the mistake. And the question was raised, do you want us to refer it for an insurance claim? Mr. Wheeler will tell you, once you hand that claim over to your insurance agency, it's not just a matter of, hey, we want you to pay this. We actually get our hands tied by that. So our insurance contracts prevent us from, going out and making affirmative admissions of liability. We have to cooperate at that point. We're obligated to. So, I know, and I appreciate the conversations I've had with commissioners who say, well, tell me about this insurance process. It's frustrating for everybody. Mr. Wheeler called me this week and said, if there was anything I could do to speed it up, I would have. But, it's like you said, it goes down to Orlando. It kind of goes into a little bit of a black hole, and it's frustrating for all of us. But I do think that hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here.
I appreciate it.
So is there any,
Mr. Wheeler.
Is there any estimated times? I mean, where are we at? Is the appraisals ordered, or do you have?
Well, now you've got 4 players involved. Now you've got outside counsel. Contractor in Jacksonville, and you've got two appraisals, it looks like two appraisals there. I've never got a good appraisal. And so it could be weeks, it could be more weeks.
Who's the outside?
And there's no control that we have, the staff has, there's no control that I have. Once it leaves our hands, we lose control.
And I understand that the insurance company has their job to do and they're going to do it. And we've all dealt with that, you know, and it's just, I thought there was at one point that, did you ever get a call from, you said somebody was supposed to call and get an appraiser's name or something, David?
Originally, the adjuster called me and said, I'm going to refer this to an attorney. The attorney will call you and you can give them some local adjusters' names. He instead chose this attorney out of Jacksonville. That attorney out of Jacksonville has his own appraisers.
Okay.
There's two things that we can look at that you have some control on. One, I've already requested that the claims manager audit this file when we get through it. Can you tell me, has the adjuster been returning calls in a timely way? So I'm going to work on that. That's something I can do. There's something that you can also do. You sit on these boards, the Florida Association of Counties Trust. You do sit on that board. And you can make a call, and the next time this comes up, you do have some control over that. So you can ask questions about the claims process.
I appreciate it very much, Mr. Wheeler. Any more discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Crown.
Next thing is Commissioner Murphy at the end of the last meeting wanted an update on where the CARES and ARPA money, where we stand with them. And so this is a real quick update. We received $12,508,654 in CARES. What we submitted as receipts to the federal government, you can see above, $3.8 million for fire and dispatch salaries, $7.69 for law enforcement salaries, and $913,710 for city public safety salaries. All that was submitted and accepted, it was fine, and so we were then reimbursed at $12,508,654. So I think the bigger question that Commissioner Murphy wanted to know about was, well, what do we do with that money once we got it reimbursed? So we pulled up into the computer system, the neighborly computer system. We paid $6.574 million to 453 businesses. You had budgeted $7 million, so we were under that by the time we closed. For PPE-related expenses, we did $303,207. For individual assistance, that's the monies that we paid to the United Way and to Catholic Charities, we did $1.87 million. We gave the TDC $330 to do the flat field study for the 500 acres that we bought. Other local agencies, Columbia County School District, the town of Fort White, Lake City Humane Society in Richardson, we all gave them money. We had a contract with them and we paid them money out of these funds. That totaled $804,416. And then finally, the administrative costs, the cost of the auditing firm, the cost of the attorneys, the cost of our staff that we hired through the temp services, the cost of running ads through the Lake City Reporter, the cost of running ads through the advertiser. Those types of administrative costs came out to $128,652,000. So at the last time that we spoke with Mr. Scott over in the clerk's office, he told us you can consider at least $2 million of reimbursement funds still in reserve from the CARES money. Having said that, the ARPA money, we have and will receive $13,924,165. We submitted the standard deduction for lost revenues, which is $10 million on our last report. So we will be receiving, well, I think we've already received the $10 million from lost revenues. That money is budgeted or was budgeted $750,000 for individual assistance, $1 million for business assistance, $750,000 for emergency home repairs, and the balance $7,500,000 for infrastructure projects. Having said that, We said we were closing out the business assistance, so it's going to be slightly less than the $1 million. We still got one case outstanding. And all that money that isn't spent in business assistance would then roll into the emergency home repairs project. So that is how you're spending your $10 million. In addition, that leaves a balance of $3,924,165, which we wanted to use for the Fort White Ellisville connection. That is a $7.2 million project, $1 million in legislative appropriations for the state, for the town of Fort White. This would add another $3.9 million. And then we would need to budget the rest of it from either the balance of the ARPA monies or the balance of the CARES money. We did talk about the additional next phase in Ellisville, 1.5 million coming from those CARES reserves. You've got a lot of projects, which we'll be talking about in the next couple of weeks, that may need more money. So all this money is available for you to budget as you see fit. But this is kind of where our budgets are set. Any questions?
David, if you would you please email that to myself and it's not on the backup here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was working on it last night until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, gosh, now he wants overtime, guys.
I don't get overtime. I do it for love.
Give it to him.
So the next item is fire department allegations. We have been receiving some very serious allegations about the fire department. We take every allegation very seriously and we investigate them. So we wanted to bring it up tonight because we know you're hearing it from the streets. And we want you to know that we take these things very seriously and we do look into them. And having said that, Mr. Kirby has a report.
Thank you, David. Commissioner Williams, I would like to challenge jogging your memory back to when I first came on board. I recognized that our mainline motor grader operators had routes. When somebody went on vacation, when somebody was out sick, I recall you and Commissioner Weaver at the time was very unhappy with my decision to rotate motor grader operators. I did it for mechanical purposes. So I moved them all the way around the county. I think every quarter, Commissioner Weaver and I went round and round. We finally got it around our hands that it worked. We argued about it, but it worked. I want y'all to remember that. As Mr. Krause indicated, about a week and a half ago, we heard a lot of strong talk about a lot of misdoings at the fire department. I said, David, I thought I've already heard this before. So we'll get started. Approximately 1 year ago, a grievance was filed by an employee for unfair treatment and controversy related to the fire department's involvement with a private third-party company opposing a private safety training company using the fire department's training area for education courses. So several years ago, at that time, Chief Crawford and Assistant Chief Cervantes, along with Public Works, along with Donnie Dupree, Maintenance Facilities, went down and built a training course at Ellisville. That's why, Racetrack Road, I'm sorry. Okay, so back then, an investigation was conducted. This included human resources and an outside attorney. Multiple interviews and a report that long. Everything was good. No illegal activities, no substantial grievance, problem solved. Assistant Chief Hill comes on board. And I was friendly reminded, I do have breakfast with the chiefs on numerous occasions. I think it's healthy. They asked me to breakfast one morning. They said, Chief Crawford says, I remember you got a lot of controversy about moving motor grader operators around. I said, yeah. So, well, we got a unique situation. We have 3 particular individuals on one shift that's been at the same geographical location for in excess of 10 years. Okay. We kind of got the same thought process to move them around to cover geographics. We talked about it. And by the way, Those three individuals are doubling their salary based on overtime. That's the one that really caught my attention. So a memo with changes sent to all employees on January 14th, going to effect January 26th. Move everybody around. All three of those top leader positions of that particular shift never worked another hour on the clock as of January 26th. They resigned. As Mr. Krause indicated, we reopened the same investigation based on allegations for the second time with the same outside attorney about the safety company being illegal. The attorney produced another report for the second time, no wrongdoings. What the attorney did say, the same thing County Attorney Foreman said first go around, we need to enter into a written agreement and get the board to say grace over it like we do everything else. We need some housekeeping. The benefit, the public benefit to Columbia County, they train our firefighters for free. Okay. Any company can go there, so I understand, training company. That's your public benefit. What I kindly would ask this board, or anybody in the public, if we have not covered our bases with a second investigation, please tell us what we need to do.
So
In addition, the allegations of illegal activity, we did discuss with the sheriff and did discuss with the attorney. Unless the board wants them to pursue it, they didn't see a reason to pursue it.
I think y'all did a great job. Where did the allegations come from? Can we talk about that, or is that, I don't know. I don't know what the privacy is.
I don't know, there's a privacy issue. We've heard it just from commissioners. We've heard it from the individuals themselves. We've heard it from several sources.
So
But we know that
what I'm saying
the
about
allegations continue.
the
and we don't want
allegations
the
about
board to
other
think that-
officers all over.
We don't want the
doing-
board to think we're neglecting our job. We are looking into every allegation and taking it very seriously. We hope it's concluded at this point. I mean, I've talked to some of the firefighters. Actually, I talked to all of them at some point.
Was there one or two people or three people doing this, or was it just, were
It
these
was-
just allegations throughout the whole department, just everybody talking about everybody, or was it kind of a retribution thing? I don't.
A county commissioner approached me first, the second go around. And then somewhere, citizens approached me. They just stopped me. I overheard a conversation with an individual, one of these guys that resigned.
Oh,
I listened to a
that was
conversation.
my question.
Let's reinvestigate. We've covered our bases. If anybody's got anything to add, I heard the wildest stories. The attorneys, Mr. Foreman, outside attorney, human resources, not one thing has been sustained. Now, what has been sustained is our three employees doubling their salary out of 50+ employees at the fire department. Nobody else was doing that.
And of course, you hear allegations that employees are being targeted by management. Actions were taken in retribution to other actions. The decision to move the shifts was not in retaliation for anybody, and it was exactly the reason Mr. Curtis.
So all these allegations begun right after you made that decision.
Well, they began at the promotion. The second time they came up was after the,
Okay. All right.
so after the decision to rotate shifts, one of the shifts came and spoke to me. And Lisa was involved as well. She sat there and we talked to them, we listened to all their concerns. And those things we could investigate, we did proceed to investigate. Those employees, though, felt that they had a target on their back. But they did not return to work thereafter. They actually submitted their resignation.
Well, I trust y'all's investigation. I don't have any more questions. I just want to know what it's Sounds like politics to me.
Mr. Chairman, it's disappointing it even has to come into a public forum like this. I mean, from somebody who's worked in public safety my whole career, 25 years, I can tell you that when I worked for Columbia County EMS, my shift got moved probably every other year and there was no rhyme or reason for it. It was healthy to move people around. So the fact you get disgruntled because your shift, we didn't cut your pay, we didn't demote you. We put the trust in the fire chief and the assistant fire chief to run their department like they need to run it. They're the experts. And so if you got your feelings hurt, maybe you didn't need to be there to start with. Exactly. And as far as this training, let me tell you about this training company because I've seen it. You know, when that training takes place, I don't know what they call it. They have a big one that happens every year. They do train our firefighters for free. But you guys would be surprised the night of that training, you go downtown and see how many outside firefighters are in Columbia County and Lake City eating in our restaurants, staying in our town. It's a little tourism deal too that happens because of that out there. So, you know, that's all good, not only for the fire department, but for our community. I think this is unfounded. I think it's disappointed it even has to come in front of a public forum. I have full confidence in our fire chief and our assistant fire chief to get the job done. I think we hired the right assistant fire chief, supporting 100%, and I think the department's moving forward.
I do not ever expect this county to be in a position where the department head can't hire who they think the best person is. When employees start hiring employees, that dog ain't gonna hunt. And whatever how you all run it, chiefs, where y'all run it, managers, where y'all run it, it's y'all program. And I'm not gonna get in it. That's what we hired y'all to do. And you say, guys, I investigated, it was unfounded, so be it. It's good enough for me.
You just want the board to rest assured that we do investigate all allegations.
I'll just ask if the chief or the assistant chief, do they have anything to add to this, or they want to speak or not? I mean, it's up to y'all. But if it's been investigated and it's been unsubstantiated, unless somebody can prove something otherwise to me, I want to put this matter to rest.
Yep. Let's move on, David.
Okay, sir. So the last thing is updates from the county manager. I'm gonna pass these out to you. This is show and tell time. These little,
Oh, God.
facets you guys can look at. These things, if you look at them, crack. This is what was put in the courthouse 20 years ago on your heating and cooling system. We have had 3 of them break. The 3 in front of you, there's a slight crack you can't see, but what happens when they break is we flood the annex. So we've had 2 floods just this week in the tax collector's office. There will be a certain cost to replacing all these things, but I guess I'm requesting approval to go ahead and replace all these things on an emergency basis because the risk of losing critical documents from flooding water is just too great. The risk of losing computer equipment from the flooding water is too great. After 20 years, these fittings must have just worn out. And I felt you needed to know about it. And if you could authorize me to continue the process of replacing all of them in our building, I would appreciate it.
You're gonna replace them with something else other than this.
New fittings, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Maybe a little bit thicker.
But not these
a
kind.
little bit updated too.
That is a Donnie Dupree.
We're not buying from them anymore.
That's a Donnie
Are
Dupree.
you saying replace them all or replacing the broken ones?
I say replace them all so you don't continue to have flooding.
Dale,
We have
Dale,
replaced the ones that broke, but we don't want to come back next week and have another flood because another one broke.
How many more of these are there?
What, Kevin, 60?
Yes, sir. Oh,
About
that's-
60.
Dale Williams must have got a heck of a deal on eBay is all I
He found them at a.
Yeah, this is what
know. Yard
happens.
sale.
Yeah.
This is exactly what happens when you get low bidder.
David, I don't know about the rest of the board, but you got my permission to replace it.
Yeah.
I don't know that this thing is really coming for us, but you have my permission to replace it.
You got some
Mr.
ridiculous
Chairman,
offers in trade.
let's do it by motion. I authorize the replacement of all these pieces that David says is defective. So we don't keep having claim one week and the next week another one. That's my motion.
You got a second?
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
After this week, John's glad he has our liability insurance and not our flood insurance.
Yeah, we
The next one is the North Florida Mega Industrial Park Wastewater Treatment Plant, Ms. Bell. We went out to bid and we had 0 bidders. Nobody bid on this project. So we are strategizing with Kevin and myself and Mike Knoll. And they've been strategizing on what do we do next and what are the next steps. And so I thought you should know about it.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chair, members of the board, Jamie Bell, engineer, Jones Edmonds. You all know me pretty well at this point. Yes, we went out to bid and unfortunately we received no bids even after answering over 40 bidder questions and extending the bid deadline by 1 week. We are dealing with unprecedented times right now when it comes to the construction market, the materials market, things like that, as Mr. Kirby has alluded to many times over the course of just today's presentations alone. It's truly unprecedented. And so while we had 5 contractors at the pre-bid meeting and a 6th one show interest after the fact, we still received no bids. And so my team met internally yesterday to strategize how to go about basically modifying the bid for a rebid situation to make it more enticing to contractors. And that involves basically calling each of the contractors and firms, the vendors and sales reps who were at the pre-bid meeting and asking them why. Mr. Knoll has already done so. Where is he? There he is. Hi. And he received 4 responses, 3 of which appeared to indicate they simply did not have the resources to bid the job. They either did not have staff in this area of the state, or there were a number of other projects that were out to bid at the same time, and they simply had to limit their options. And so they chose not to bid on this one. He did receive 1 longer response from one of the firms. I'm sure he'd be happy to discuss that with you, but that firm brought up a few items that we want to take under consideration, and we want to reach out to get a little bit more information from those additional firms as well. So we're hoping to gather that information to put together a list of basically proposals for staff to evaluate on how we could modify the bid. That may include extending the construction schedule. As an example, it came up at the pre-bid meeting that one of the items, motor controls for the wastewater plant, currently have a 60 to 70 week lead time. And we had only had a 365-day construction schedule to substantial completion. So as more and more items are coming up like that, we're realizing that we may need to extend that schedule, which of course impacts our grants and their deadlines. And so we are hoping that with this no bid situation, by gathering information from the contractors and putting together an updated bid package, we could then reach out to the grant agency and discuss these extenuating circumstances and hopefully get extensions on those deadlines. If not, we can do everything in our power to meet their requirements to at least expend the funds by their deadline, whether that means pre-purchasing materials or storing materials on site. If we need to, at least we can spend the money, even if we are a little bit slower on the construction side. But overall, we are reaching out to all of the firms present at the pre-bid, as well as additional firms who did not show interest, but we have historically had good teaming partnerships with, just to kind of gauge their opinion on the market and what we could do differently to modify this moving forward. And so, like I said, we plan to finish making those calls. We made some today. We'll make more tomorrow. We hope to get a list of options to county staff early next week so that we can discuss how to modify things moving forward. If they are minor modifications, we could get this rebid in as little as 2 weeks. Just update the package, work with your procurement folks to iterate that and get it up to speed, and then we can get that out. If it's a more major change, it might take a little longer, but we are committed to getting this updated however we need to and get it back out on the street.
Ms. Jamie,
Yes, sir.
has any of these projects like this ever been bid out with cost plus, and they just bid on the plus over the cost?
That's a good question. I unfortunately don't do a lot on the bidding side of things. I'm more on like the front end of projects. And so there's a lot of different ways you can design these packages. You can have allowances for items that you're sure are going to have escalating costs. I think we talked about that, either Mr. Krause and I or Mr. Knoll and I, about there's some ways you can build that into the package. And there's a couple of different approaches you can take, but like I said, we have my senior manager over a construction group looking into it. We have the senior manager in infrastructure looking at it, as well as a couple of other senior engineers. So we have all our heavy hitters internally reaching out to their contacts to put together the best options to bring back to staff and then to the board.
My question to David today was, or yesterday, whatever day he called me and told me we didn't have bids, was a follow-up on Commissioner Ford's question. I asked David, why can't we bid this to cost plus? Take RFQ, decide on a company, we enter into a contract with them, cost plus, not to exceed. And David said it was something that would be considered, could that be considered, Mike?
Well, Commissioner, Mike Noel, purchasing officer for the county. Let me first say, and I've, in my 40 years of procurement, and I've done a lot of capital projects, that was my first time of not having any bids. So it was eye-awakening. And so with that, we did start doing some inquiry to see what's going on. And as Jamie's indicated, this is a very unusual market, more unusual than you would normally see. I mean, cost escalation is one thing, materials not being available, one thing, contract time being thing. Even contractors are not even able to keep all the trades enough to have enough work going on. Probably the biggest thing that's going on today that you don't normally have is the market is flooded, particularly here in Florida, with similar projects. So when I started bouncing around the state trying to see what was going on, we weren't the only no bid entity. A number of entities did not receive bids, or they only received one bid. And in many cases, most cases, they're overbid. So the entities are finding themselves having to either value engineer the jobs out to get it under budget or get creative. We're going to investigate. We're going to marry with these professionals so we can come back with a good plan. So I don't want to say it'd be a cost plus, but we want to look at options. It could very well be that we take a large project. One of our contractors have said 75% of that project was a site project, not the concrete project. We may find ourselves splitting that up into multiple projects, make it more doable, make it more appealing to bidders that can do it and maybe do it in different phases. Obviously, the contract time is going to have to be addressed. We just made that too tight. We had even downgraded the liquidated damages within the limits that we could do because we knew on the back end that would be a problem. We didn't want contractors to load up their bid on liquidated damages. So we took all those things into account. By the day before, I was starting to hear from various subcontractors that were looking for who to bid it with. So I knew all of a sudden now the number of prime bidders were going to be limited. Didn't realize it was going to be down to one, but it looked like it was going to be down to one. Clearly, the project, just in talking to them without getting specifics, was already going to be double what we had budgeted. Double what we had budgeted. We are going to have to find some creative ways with them to go back out to bid. I don't know that it'll be 2 weeks. I want us to find a solution such that we've got an end product we can reach. But I think it's probably going to be very creative because everybody else is doing the same thing. Contractors are even saying right now they can pick and choose, and they are picking and choosing what projects they want to go after because they don't want to get hung on a project that they get stuck with. They also want to go make money where they can make money, and they go close to home. So now the bid market is so limited because it's flooded right now. So bad timing for everybody. So we're just going to have to get real creative, and we'll investigate that as an option.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Ron.
And I think Ms. Jamie mentioned it. We have had this grant for 4 years now. 4 years, 5 years.
December is the close date this year.
And we know that behind the scene that we've been being pushed to do something with this project. And we do know from sources in Tallahassee that I've been told that when appropriations comes up, the first thing they say, well, when our legislatures go to the heads to be to secure a grant or appropriation, they say, well, Columbia County haven't spent this money here yet. So we stand a chance of losing the money, and we are not getting other appropriations because we haven't spent the money. So, you know, we got to work out something to do that. And then it all depends on, we just caught in a cobweb right now, you know, sense of speaking, with the economy being like it is, we can't get bids, and then we got a company that say, well, I want to be here by this time, and we are dealing with that and dealing with that. We need to answer quick, and we need to answer to know, and we need to, most of all, we need to answer quick, and we need to know how much more this project going to cost us.
Mr. Chairman, I like the idea of splitting the bid, but what if we, and I understand you're going to have to extend timelines, obviously we know that now, but what if you extend timelines and then incentivize early completion? You know, so maybe we keep them on track to, you know, get it done as quick as they can, but we extend the timeline out. I mean, it's going to affect everything, but it's affecting everything anybody does as far as little projects, big projects, they're all, it's a mess. and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. So, and I think the state understands that too, but.
Well, I think the good thing is Project Wave's probably not gonna move on their schedule they're looking at either.
Exactly.
Yeah, if the board has any other ideas that you want us to evaluate, please forward those to staff so that we can share them when we meet next week and kind of go through just a priority order list of what we think would be the most enticing and what we think would be the easiest to, implement into our package. And I think there's lots of creative solutions, like Mike said, and I'm hoping that we can land on the one that makes the most sense for the county, gets this money spent so we don't lose it, and gets the project moving as quickly as we can.
David, if we need to call a special meeting to act on something, if something comes up that we can, you find a road, to get where we need to go. I mean, we can call a special meeting so we can vote on something if we need to.
Absolutely. So,
I mean, right now, this is a priority, that we get something moving on this as quick as possible, I think. So, if you work out a plan and you think it's something's doable, don't hesitate to call a meeting. We'll act on it. So.
I know the minute this happened, Jamie and her
I'm
staff.
speaking for myself. I guess the rest of the board.
Yes.
The minute this happened, Jamie and her staff went into their corner, and Mike and I went into our corner and trying to figure out how to move forward.
And David, in all this equation we're talking about, what's the latest update with the Weyerhaeuser Project Wave negotiation?
Where we're at with Weyerhaeuser on Project Wave is Project Wave has signed the papers to purchase it. Weyerhaeuser is looking at their options, and they have not signed off yet on the purchase. Mr. Kirby has a point. He just met with them today, so.
So we've decided to have monthly meetings as it relates to everybody involved in the intermodal park. It happened to be today. Kind of on the heels of what we were talking about earlier. Weyerhaeuser's commitment to Project Wave consisted of various things: clearing the land, getting the floor slab ready, et cetera. The price to do that 11 months ago was provided. They got an updated price at 106% increase.
And they're trying to figure out how to deal with the 106% increase.
I know, I appreciate that. I just want the public to understand that Columbia County ain't opened up.
We are not the holdup. Columbia County is not the holdup. And again, the reason these are all under updates from the county manager rather than individual agenda items is these were things that are moving so fast we didn't have them Friday. These are things we did not know Friday. So that's why they came up under dates. FGA rail sale, I can be real quick. FGA has been sold. There's a new company in charge.
Thank you, James.
I believe we have a meeting tomorrow, a week from today with the new owner. They seem a lot more receptive to working with us on the rail spurs and trying to get that issue resolved. Having said that, we are going to go ahead and close out the grant anyway because we don't have time to wait. And I've received some receipts from our engineer that will allow me then to finish out the grant, close it out, and submit to the state. But I think this particular owner is more of an equity partner and didn't buy it just to flip it. So this particular owner seems much more willing to invest in the rail lines and work with us on it. So the next one is misdemeanor offender supervisor services, RFQ 2022K misdemeanor court. And Mike's been involved with this one too, and he's ready to pull his hair out. So I don't know if he'll ever come back if we keep doing this to him. For a long time, there's been an issue with wanting to go out, and our contract expired on misdemeanor court, do an RFP, look for new people. Finding people to provide this service is very difficult. There's not a lot of companies that do it. Having said that, in this process, we have received a letter just very recently from Florida Gateway Probation Services, which says, come June 15th, my office is closed and I'm done. I'm out, gone. So the RFQ will open on Tuesday. And Mike and I will get together with some people from the court services to try and select a firm. We would like your approval to go ahead and negotiate with whoever we select, because if we're going to meet that June 15th deadline, the replacement plan and strategy has to be on your June 2nd agenda. So this is extremely time sensitive.
Yeah, this is, if you don't understand misdemeanor court and the way
Which we
things
don't.
work, yeah, it's almost, it'll be a miracle if we can pull this off, really. And get it done when it has, you know what I mean?
Now, the current provider has guaranteed the money and the records will all be transferred to Jay Swisher and the clerk of courts in the interim until a new probation services provider can be created. There are other options if we don't get a bid, including the clerk of courts providing the service. The judge told me today we could provide the service. I wasn't real comfortable with that because we don't know what we're doing when it comes to probationary court, but we're hoping we can find, we have two people we think will bid on it, and we're hoping at least one of them will be a good firm. But we wanted your authorization to proceed with negotiations prior to your board meeting.
I'll make a motion that we, let you go ahead and, send out the RFQs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
So Columbia Youth Football, I bring this up to you because our budget time is coming and youth football is going to start in a few weeks and it's coming up very quickly. We had been in discussions with Columbia Youth Football for the county to take over a significant portion of youth football, the administration portion. At this point in time, they have withdrawn their request for us to take it over, at least for this season. So we will not be taking over Columbia Youth Football this fall. They're going to continue to operate it themselves. They would like us to consider taking it over in next year's budget. I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that because I know there's been a lot of talk about it. So coming up this fall will have nothing to do with it other than write the check like we normally do. And then next year's budget, we'll talk about actually taking it over. The reason is if you're going to have the Jamboree in September, so you can have football in October, you need to start working on it in June. Because you got to have registrations, you got to have, the draft board and all that stuff done before Football League ever starts. So it needed to happen now and there just was not enough time to do it.
Are they going to be able to play in Memorial Stadium this year? I mean, nobody in the city's talking about tearing that down.
From what I have heard from Terry and Paul Dial, the city is not planning to tear it down. They're actually planning to fix the bleachers, use Poloni's as the restrooms because they still don't like the restrooms. And they have indicated that they would still allow Columbia Youth Football to play there. We've indicated to Columbia Youth Football, the option of Andy Maddox as well. Now that it's still theirs, it's still their decision.
That's we don't let them worry about that.
And David, here is where the dilemma still comes again. You say they withdrew the offer to take it over this year, but they would like for us to take it over next season.
So far, unless they change their minds, they would like us to look at taking it over for the fall of next year.
So the fall of next year has to be, the taking over of youth, Columbia youth football has to be approved in this year's budget, or we'll be in the same shape we would have been this year, trying to find the money to do it if we were gonna take over this year in the
Right.
2021-22 budget. So
Realistically,
if that is done in the budget, during our budget process, you need to put together a budget to take over youth football for 23-24.
yes.
A season. Then if they still don't want us to take it over, that money just go back in contingency.
Mhm.
But
So-
I don't want, I don't want.
Commissioner
Or
Williams,
do we
right,
give
it's-
them the option? I mean, at some point, you got to say yeah or no. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Commissioner Williams, right, it's kind of like a cash flow situation or a timing situation. If you're going to do football, not this season, but next season, you need to start no later than January,
Right.
which will be in our next budget.
but if we ramp up to take it over and all, we can't just have them. They got to make a commitment one way or the other. If they want to keep running it, let them keep running it. But if they want to run it, you know, I guess what I'm saying, I don't want to take all the time and effort to do all that and then them say, well, we don't want.
We don't,
gonna
yeah.
keep it. So,
They seem to want to have us run it. Like I said, a lot of it was just timing. There just was not enough time to get it done in the way they would like to see it done for this season. City Emergency Repair Program. As you know, the city asked us to help them with their emergency housing repair program, mirroring the one that we currently offer. They approved to do it with just writing us a check and we run it. However, the attorney has said we need an interlocal agreement. This was done, I think, Monday or Tuesday of this week. So I'm just giving you an update on that. So there will be an interlocal agreement that they'll have to execute. We'll have to execute. Our two attorneys will have to negotiate before they'll transfer the money to us to run their program. We've already set up the computer system. We're ready to do it. We're just waiting on the interlocal agreement. In response to the evaluations, I did read all of your evaluations and took to heart everything everyone said. I wanted to start with, we do set goals. I know we don't probably communicate them as well as we should, but we do set goals. Some of the goals that we've achieved in 2021 and 2022 is the acquisition of the 4.1 million gallon water use permit, the development of the wastewater and water systems at NFMIT, getting Bell Road paved, installing water, sewer, natural gas, and locating Werner Trucking to Lake City, funding for the proposed Bell Street Extension project. We have Congressman Dunn willing to submit that into the federal budget, so we're hoping that that will go well. We revised, as you remember, the administrative code so that we could eliminate single-person departments and make management oversight more effective of the departments we do have. We constructed rail segments 1 and 2. We increased the development in Ellisville, bringing in the Burger King and the service center for the truck stop, which required the expansion of your wastewater treatment plant. And that now, based on the direction you gave Mr. Kirby earlier, is going to move forward with the construction. We're ready to start that. We negotiated with the city, we negotiated with the town of Fort White to operate the town of Fort White's water system, form a joint utility committee with the town of Fort White, and begin the Ellisville to Fort White water main connection project. We developed and operated individual business assistance program under CARES and ARPA money. We enabled the Richardson Community Center to serve as an emergency shelter during disasters by putting in the generator program, which they're currently in the process of doing. And we worked with the city to provide sewer service to State Road 47 and 75 interchange and support the development at that interchange. We used to work with Cornerstone Crossing. That unfortunately fell through. We have another developer that's very interested in locating there. Where we stand on that is once the city completes their sewer lift stations, we'll start working on a regional pump station so that you only have to go under the highway once or twice. I was waiting on the city, since it has to meet city specifications, to select the engineer. I believe they're going to use Jones Edmonds. And we're waiting on them to give us when they're going to move forward. I don't know. I think Jamie already left. But I think that's the direction the city wants to go in, is have Jones Edmonds say, here's the interchange. How do we get sewer from both sides of the interstate to the other side where the pump stations are? We believe we know how to do that, but again, since it is a joint city-county effort, it is a city utility, we felt it best to let the city take the lead on that. So we are actively working on that with Mr. Dial as we speak. We said we were going to develop emergency housing repair and CDBG housing rehabilitation programs, which we did. We had a goal of consolidating the building inspectors with the city. So we did. We now provide all building inspections and permits for both the city and the county. And that's actually going very well. We did complete the annual 2021-22 annual budget with a reduction in the millage rate. We supported the redistricting committee efforts. We had to help them with the selection of their advisors, and we didn't make the decisions for them, but we provided the staff to help them make redistricting as seamless as it was. We did complete several park programs, including the Rhode Island kiosk. We're working on the 5-point restrooms. Of course, Columbia City Park is a great park that everyone uses, and we're now talking about creating a master plan for that park so we can apply for additional grant funding. And we worked with Mr. Murphy and Mr. Kirby and Clint Pittman. Just this week, we had our first kickoff meeting on that project. We did revise the lease to include the improvements for the supervisor elections and to modify the Watertown facilities so that we can meet the requirements of the voting and also provide the additional polling location. We did complete the jail pod and construction and budget under time, and we did pursue the expansion of Fire Station 51, which is just awarded today, I believe the bid was. And then one of the things we wanted to do was create a server room in the annex to support citywide IT efforts, so we don't have to have servers scattered throughout our network. We can have them in one place. You approve the fire suppression system for it, and it's working very well. There's a lot of other goals that we did set during the course of the year, but these were kind of the highlights. We do present a quarterly update on the 60 capital projects that we currently work on every quarter. Mr. Kirby presents those. If you want additional information on a quarterly basis, we can add that to the presentation that Mr. Kirby does. We just need to know what direction you want us to go in. Having said that, you also in the evaluations talked about I need to delegate more. There were several commissioners that said I need to delegate more. We had funds for the assistant county manager. Unfortunately, if you remember, when I first took over, I felt the priority was getting a finance officer in here, Amy, and she's doing a tremendous job, and also figuring out what we were going to do with purchasing when Esther left. And we contracted with Mike Knoll, who's also doing a great job. Due to the competitive job market, the purchasing officer replacement salary will be more than what Esther was making, or you will not get a good purchasing director. We've gone through 2 or 3 rounds of trying to get somebody and could not find a qualified candidate. So we've got interviews coming up, 2 weeks? So we're hoping we'll get you a new purchasing director in the near future. Because of the purchasing situation and the finance position, there is no money to fill the assistant county manager position, because that money was used to support these positions. So to address your issue of delegation, you approved a new human resource officer position. As that comes to fruition, that allows me then to start delegating more work to the administrative services director, Lisa Roberts. I envision her doing a lot of projects, much as she did with Mr. Williams when he was county manager. And so she wants to step up. She really enjoyed doing those types of things. So a lot of the administrative delegation that you were worried about, we plan to direct towards Ms. Roberts. Any questions?
Yeah, David, here again, I only saw my evaluation, and I stand behind my evaluation 100%. I think you have done a tremendous job of carrying out what this board has asked you to do in the direction we want to take Columbia County. I think I've always have gotten all the information I want to know about any project. I've never been left in limbo about any project, and I have never been fed a bunch of baloney about a project. And I appreciate your effort, your hard work is what you do to carry out the duties of this board. And I still say I am greatly, greatly satisfied and appreciative of you and your staff and our department head for the way we run Columbia County.
Thank you very much. I can't do it without Kevin and the rest of the staff.
Any more comments?
Again, if any commissioner needs additional information that they're not getting, please let us know. I know I'm talking with Amy about producing the quarterly report on the budget amendments, so that you'll get the internal budget amendments. I apologize for that. Lacey quit in February 2020, before I became county manager, before Amy was hired. We had no idea she was providing that report. If it's something we should have given you, we apologize for not doing it, and we'll make sure you get that report.
We forgive you. You done?
I'm done.
I see you got the word through to the school board about the air conditioning, this working.
Are there any staff
I
comments?
can't take credit for that one. That's
Oh, no, public comment. Are there any public comments?
Anybody still awake?
Are there any staff comments?
No, sir. No, sir.
Are there any commissioner
I
comments?
got one. Just,
Oh, God.
not on, this is National EMS Week, so when you see your EMS providers at the fire department or with our private providers out there, wish them a happy EMS week. I know they're being well fed. We're all being well fed at every receiving hospital throughout the area. So happy EMS week, guys.
I got a quick one. I want you to stand up. Stosh Guntick is our new special projects manager. We're happy to have him. He knows a lot of people in Tallahassee and a lot of people around here.
He's, who now?
Stosh Guntick. He ain't been around long as you have.
I think he will be a very good
Yeah.
asset to David and Kevin and the rest of the
We
team.
appreciate you taking the job.
Somebody else I can delegate to. So we're going to keep him very busy.
Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Move.